across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, top of the morning to you. It is 2 minutes past 6. Your weekend starts here. This is Talk, the home of common sense, and I'm your host for the next 4 hours, Mark Dolan. We've got a lot to get through. Prince Andrew is no more. He's now plain old Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. But has the problem, this political headache, gone away for King Charles? What next for the British monarchy? Does it face peril as the Republicans circle and smell blood? What needs to happen to rehabilitate our ailing monarchy? Do we need to think the unthinkable? Should King Charles consider abdicating to give William a chance at the throne to completely reinvent, refresh and modernise this institution? Should Charles step down and give William a chance? Plus all of the big political stories of the day. We've got some big names, big opinions, and we'll have some fun along the way. It is 3 minutes past 6. Let me tell you that this show is all about you. I want to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Give me a call and book your place on the show. Tommy's on the phones today and he's very, very becoming, let me tell you. He's got an excellent bedside manner. We've got the dream team today. It's a staff of thousands, a very busy show. Send the word TALK in your text to 87222. You can also tweet us on X. You can do us a voice message. Any which way to communicate with the show and any which way to watch and listen, because yes, we're on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. But we're on TV as well, so if you want to watch the show, just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. What do you think about this? Should Charles lay the groundwork for his own abdication in order to reinvigorate and modernise the British monarchy and give William a chance? 0344 499 1000. So much to get through, and this is not a drill. The monologue is back, yes, at 8 a.m. My blueprint for a reinvented modern monarchy 2.0. I'll be laying out a bold plan to save this critically important institution. That is Dolan's Dispatch at 8 o'clock. It might get me cancelled. Good. So much to get through. Great to have your company. What a thrill it is to be back at the home of common sense. We've got lots of work to do over the next 4 hours. Let's start with tomorrow's front pages. And let's start with the Sun newspaper, Britain's best-selling national newspaper. 3 months to quit Lodge. Norfolk locals slam Andy. He will move in with 72 teddies. I'm, of course, talking about plain old Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We can't bear him either is the rather hilarious front page splash on the Sun newspaper. Humiliated Andrew Windsor, I mean, how the mighty have fallen, has 3 months to clear all of his teddy bears and get out of the Royal Lodge. Did you know he has got more teddy bears than girlfriends, Andrew? I mustn't say Prince Andrew, by the way. I've actually, Dean, I don't know whether you should connect some electrodes to my hand. And if I ever say Prince Andrew, you got to zap me. Apparently that can be arranged, which is a bit harsh. Right, so humiliated Andrew Windsor has 3 months to clear his enormous teddy bear collection and get out of the Royal Lodge. The former prince and his collection of 72 cuddly toys must quit the 30-room Windsor mansion by the end of January by order of his brother, the King. But residents in Sandringham in Norfolk aren't happy. That's where Andrew will be moving, of course. They said yesterday, we don't want him here either. He is a horrible man. It is hard to know where you put Andrew. Maybe, because, you know, these migrant hotels are so popular now for unwanted characters. So maybe we could, you know, what about the Bell in Epping? He could have a suite in there, couldn't he? And get down and dirty with some of the people that have entered this country illegally. Maybe an army barracks. Has the problem of Prince Andrew gone away? Let me know what you think about this. Has the King done enough to dilute and diminish this political problem that he now faces? The Times newspaper. Bob Geldof, I want to bow out of Band Aid. And Andrew quit fight after losing loyalty of ex-wife. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor finally agreed to leave his Grace and Favour residence at Royal Lodge, according to The Times, after it became clear that his closest ally, his former wife, Sarah Ferguson, had deserted him. And let's be clear about something. Sarah Ferguson is as bad as him. Sarah Ferguson is as bad as Andrew. She's greedy. She's entitled. She's incredibly thick. I'm sorry, she's not a bright woman. She's got about 2 O-levels, and all she's good at is gold digging, and she has done that at our expense for decades. And why she's an admired person, and why she's still best friends with people like Kate Moss and Elton John, I'm so sorry, I can't help you on that one. The Times go on to say the former Duke and Duchess of York are to finally separate nearly 30 years after their divorce. About time. Ferguson will not join her ex-husband when he moves into exile on the King's estate in Sandringham, and will make her own plans to move on with her life. I've got to tell you, I think she's absolutely skint. I don't think she's got 2 pennies to rub together, because this is a woman who purchased a luxury Mayfair house 4 years ago and has just sold it at a loss. You don't sell a valuable asset like that at a loss, having just bought it, if you're not in financial trouble. Daily Mail, William and Kate pushed for Andrew to be ousted. Prince and Princess believed clean break was the only way forward. Is that why? See, that's leadership, isn't it? William and Catherine have gone into lockdown and said, sorry, we're not doing business with this man. He's not going to live next door when we go to the Forest Lodge. Is that an argument for making William king? Also, unrivalled royal coverage from the Daily Mail. How will Andrew cope with bleak reality of his new life in exile? That's Richard Kay. Robert Hardman, good friend of mine, great journalist. This is royal cancellation. He is reduced to a traitor. And Rebecca English, their royal editor. Why Fergie's daughters are now more upset with her. Well, because the pennies dropped, because they've realised that she's a grifter. A gold-digging grifter. Daily Express, Army is not safe for young women. The devastated mother of tragic gunner Jasly Beck claims the army is no longer safe for young women after the soldier who sexually assaulted her daughter was jailed for just 12 weeks. It's a shocking story. This young woman served in the army, a resourceful and talented young woman, and she's being harassed by a senior officer. And it was so egregious, this harassment, that she took her own life. And this guy, this absolute scumbag, gets 12 weeks in prison. I beg your pardon. Make it make sense. The Guardian, Andrew to receive 6-figure sum and stipend from the King. The former Duke of York is in line for a significant 6-figure sum and an annual stipend designed to prevent him overspending in his new life as commoner, according to The Guardian. As the King strives for a once-and-for-all solution to the problem of his brother, one option for a relocation settlement includes an initial payment to cover his location from the Royal Lodge to Windsor. This would come with an annuity paid for from Charles's private funds. So there you go. This guy, as I'll be mentioning in today's Dolan's Dispatch, it's not much of a punishment, is it? He'll be seeing out his years on the Sandringham estate, putting a log on the fire, having a little sip of brandy at 5 in the afternoon. How the other half live. Daily Mirror, downfall of a prince. King listened to the people. Daily Star, truck off. Need a man and a van, Andy? Do you need a man with a van? Ordinary Andy Windsor asks the Daily Star. Your Daily Star is happy to help you shift your bedload of teddies. So they've done a great stunt where they've put a van outside Windsor Castle, offering to help him with this move. Daily Telegraph, MPs push to stop Andrew's succession. Don't forget, Andrew's still 8th in line to the throne. And UK aid wasted on £52 million road to nowhere in the Amazon. and iWeekend. Andrew to get £500,000 payout for Royal Lodge, but now faces huge repair bill. Those are your front pages. To break down the big stories of the day, I'm delighted to welcome the formidable ex-Labour MP and now Reform UK supporter and broadcaster and journalist and businessman. Let me tell you, the drinks are on him, Simon Danchuk. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning, good to be with you.
You do have a finger in a few pies, don't you? You are an entrepreneur as well as a writer and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Part-time author, business, etc.
You keep busy. Unlike Prince Andrew, who's going to see out his days on the Sandringham estate, it's not exactly a punishment, is it?
Not really, not by most people's standards, is it? He's still being looked after to a great extent by the wider royal family. But I do think the story's going to rumble on. You sort of intimated that in your contribution there. He's going to have to go to the US, isn't he, and explain himself? He
most definitely is. The authorities there are leaning on him. The family of Virginia Giuffre, who feel vindicated that he's no longer a prince, are pushing him to actually come to America, give evidence, and do the right thing. But ain't going to happen, is it?
Well, I think pressure will keep being applied. I don't know how he gets away. I don't know how he avoids it, to be quite honest. And people are out to make sure he's held to account, and I think that's the right thing to happen.
Now, you are a former politician, and in my estimation, and I know you won't say it, but I think highly likely to become a politician again, possibly in 3 or 3.5 years' time, Simon. But putting your political head on, has the King handled this well or badly?
I think overall he's probably handled it reasonably well, but they've had to be shunted towards taking the actions.
Slow, bit cautious.
Slow, doing what they can to help Andrew. Having said all of this, he's been pushed into this position. He would deny having done anything wrong. So he's not had his day in court, as it were. He hasn't gone before the Oversight Committee in the US, which is ultimately what he's going to be called in front of. So he's still not really fully explained his own position. But nevertheless, I think the King has broadly got it right. He's been pushed to one side.
The King got there in the end, essentially.
Got there in the end, exactly.
Do you think more should have been done, perhaps, in 2022 with that £12 million payout, the out-of-court settlement with Virginia Giuffre? Because I just wonder whether that was a moment that the public completely lost faith with the Andrew cause.
Yes, I think you're exactly right there, and I think, well, there's everything around him, isn't there? I mean, what does he stand for? What's his purpose? As you've pointed out, his divorced wife, Sarah Ferguson, hanging around like a bad smell. I mean, the Sun get it right on page 6. It says, divorced in 1996, separated 2026. I mean, it tells you all you need to know. She's, as you say, the original grifter. We talk about grifters. Sarah Ferguson is the original grifter. So everything around Prince Andrew, not Prince Andrew, Andrew Windsor, has been tainted for a considerable amount of time.
Most definitely. And can you imagine anything worse than divorcing someone and then cohabiting for 2 decades?
Well, I've been divorced twice, and I'm in my 3rd marriage, so I can't imagine what it's been like. Why you would be doing that?
Neither you or the ex Mrs. Danchuk were keen to stick around.
No,
right?
exactly.
Because that's the point of a
on.
divorce. I mean, it's odd, but it just represents a very dysfunctional setup.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bigger point, I think, for the royal family is that it's been too large. And I do think we need to shrink the royal family. And perhaps this is a slight step towards doing that.
Well, here's a question for you and for Simon Danchuk this morning. Should the King prepare the groundwork for abdication in order to give William a chance to reinvent the royal family, Monarchy 2.0? Let me know your thoughts. More front pages next.
absolutely.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Listen, we've got so many messages to get through. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Oh, look at this. You see, I've talked about Dolan's dispatch today, which is my manifesto for a modernised monarchy. And do you know what? It might get me cancelled. Good. Well, Sharon says, good morning, Mark. You'll never be cancelled. You're too good, Sharon. Listen, you're very kind. I know I'll have you there supporting me all the way, whatever happens. This is the home of free speech. We'll be absolutely fine. Joanna in Salisbury. Hi, Mark. The best stop the migrants idea yet. Border force on strike and no one for the French to hand the migrants over to. They will have to stop them or pick them up and return them to France. We're going to talk about immigration very shortly. Is Britain now at breaking point? How about this? Good morning, Mark. Andrew was kicking off about losing his titles until someone paid him £500 for the inconvenience. Sean, thank you for that. I think you mean 500 million, and you're absolutely right. I've got another message here. Andrew is a despicable human being. Charles did not deal with this issue quickly enough. And why did it take him so long to recognise the victims? I think Charles covered for his brother's disgraceful behaviour, and he should not be king. I have no respect for him, none whatsoever. And look at what he did to Diana. That says a lot about this dysfunctional family. I do think Andrew needs to pay the taxpayers back. For all of the years he did not pay rent in the Royal Lodge, he owes taxpayers that money, is another message. Well, look, the public are not happy about this, and it's definitely a bad moment for the monarchy. The Republicans are sort of circling like sharks, aren't they? And they can smell blood.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the US Oversight Committee that is scrutinising the whole Epstein episode, and they'll want to hear from Andrew Windsor, won't they, in terms of what he knew and what he didn't know. But it also puts pressure, I have to say, on Peter Mandelson, our recent ambassador to the United States. He was exceptionally close to Epstein, to the point where Starmer had to sack him as ambassador to the United States, but he still sits in the House of Lords. And there are questions about whether you should have somebody like Mandelson so close to Epstein, knowing that by that stage Epstein had been prosecuted as a paedophile, and yet Mandelson continued a very supportive relationship with him. Should we have somebody like Mandelson in the House of Lords?
Well, I don't think we should. And the other issue that we were discussing over the break is that it was Peter Mandelson that pushed for Prince Andrew to be a business ambassador, a sort of trade envoy for the UK, when there were a lot of question marks over Andrew's integrity.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So you've got Mandelson cozying up to Epstein. We've all seen the photos of him with Epstein. You've got Prince Andrew with Epstein. We've all seen the photos. And then you've got Mandelson supporting Prince Andrew to be a trade envoy. Some would say they all pee in the same pot, and it's a very healthy image.
That's a very well put turn of phrase, I've got to say. Neil, absolutely echoing your points about Lord Mandelson and how Prince Andrew is no longer Prince Andrew, but Mandelson remains a peer of the realm. Make it make sense. What about this idea of a modernised monarchy? Do you think that Charles, who is an older man and battling cancer, should lay the groundwork for his own abdication?
Well, I think he's moving closer to the exit door anyway. He's in his twilight years, isn't he? I think he should see those out. He's not going to be around for a considerable amount of time. I think it's right and proper that Prince William and Catherine are playing a more prominent role.
Yeah.
I don't think King Charles should stand down early. But I do think that we are ready for that change, and perhaps sooner that comes the better.
Yes, and it looks like William, as king, won't take any prisoners.
No, I've been impressed by Prince William. I've been more impressed by Prince William than I was by Prince Charles when he was waiting to become monarch, I have to say. Prince William seems exceptionally professional, really on the money, and his wife is so supportive as well. I think people will look forward to the day that he becomes monarch.
Those who would wish to abolish the monarchy have had a good fortnight. Will they get their way in the long run? Do you think that this institution now faces genuine peril?
No, I don't think so, but you're right. There's been articles in the New Statesman, this left of centre magazine, suggesting that we should abolish the monarchy and everything else. I think they're being over-optimistic. The British public are supportive of the model of governance that we have in Britain, and that includes having a king or a queen, and I think that'll remain.
Now, Simon, I'm a public figure just like your good self, and hands up, I don't always get it right. And yesterday, I didn't get it right because it was Halloween, okay? And I wanted to scare the kids because that's what they love it.
Yeah.
It's Halloween. It's scary. I overdid it. They were in tears. They were crying. They ran. Actually, a lot of children just ran for the hills. The parents yelling at me. I had to get out of Dodge because I dressed up as Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and I'm going to apologise now. I crossed the line. A figure like myself, you're exposed. You make mistakes. And I'd like to apologise for all of those children for pretending to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. One of them just looked at me and said national insurance and then ran. It was pretty brutal. Did you do anything for Halloween last night? No, well, me and my teenage boys are down in London with me. We went to the cinema, but we went to see The Mastermind. I wouldn't recommend it, actually. What was it? Was it about David Lammy?
Yeah, no,
it was a biopic.
Very good. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It's some US movie, but...
What's the sort of subject of The Mastermind? What is it?
This guy steals some art paintings from an art gallery and doesn't get away with it and all the rest of it. And then I won't tip people off, but don't bother.
Do you know what I'm going to? Do you remember Barry Norman?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What was his show called? That was a film review.
Yeah, it was called Film, and then whatever year it was, like Film 1975. Yes. Well, I think we're going to bring back. We're going to go Simon Danchuk's Film 2025. You do a review for us. So basically, slow. Was it slow? Was that the problem with it?
It was slow. Yeah, and lots of moody music. Oh no.
I've got the other problem. Maybe I'm showing my age, but I can't hear what anyone's saying these days. So much mumbling. I don't know if you got that last night in the movie, but I watched these dramas on TV and then they're mumble-tastic. I work in broadcasting. You'd think they could speak, but there you go. The quality of acting has dropped right through the floor. So you think that in the end that this monarchy will prevail? Fundamentally, you think it's going to be all right?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I do think they need to shrink it down. That's a key issue. There's the issue about Andrew Windsor's children, isn't there? The daughters, Eugene and whether they should, whether they should be allowed to carry on with their titles. They haven't done anything wrong, have they? It's just the parents.
No, I agree. They've not done anything wrong, but I'm not sure it's the best look for them to be princesses and have those. Did you know they're still Her Royal Highness as well? HRH, Princess Eugene, Princess Beatrice. But as you say, I guess it's the sins of the parents. We shouldn't judge too harshly. The tripod has collapsed. This is Rebecca English, who's the royal editor of the Mail newspaper. The tripod is how Sarah, Beatrice and Eugenie described their bond, because they were supporting each other exactly like a tripod. But now insiders say that the princesses are more disappointed in their mother than in their father. And it's just quite extraordinary, isn't it? Another quick story to run by you, Simon Danchuk. J.K. Rowling's outrage as a top magazine names 9 trans activists among its Women of the Year. And there was me thinking woke was on the way out.
Oh, goodness me. J.K. Rowling's exactly right. It's Glamour magazine, isn't it?
Yeah.
A women's magazine. And they've put these trans guys on the front of the magazine for Women of the Year, Woman of the Year. What nonsense is this? I think it's the death of the magazine.
I think it actually is. I think they've completely lost the plot. Another interesting piece from Andrew Neil in his Saturday essay in the Mail today, Simon. Across the world, the centre-right has either disappeared or morphed into the populist right, junking what it long stood for. But there is a path back to power. The right is definitely in transition, isn't it, in this country and across the Western world. Is the right going in the right direction?
That's a really fascinating question. Andrew Neil is a top guy, isn't he, in terms of his analysis?
Most definitely.
You can't get much better than what he produces. And that's a really, is it populist, centre-right, big debate. I mean, the Conservatives in the UK have been floundering, haven't they, and still remain floundering. Some of the opinion polling that's presented today shows that Kemi Badenoch has not had a good time as leader of the opposition, and I can't see that improving radically between now and the general election. I don't think she will survive. But having said that, if they pick a new leader, I think they could recover somewhat before the general election itself. And so what I anticipate, actually, between now and the general election, Labour picking a new leader. I don't think Starmer will be there for another 12 months. The Conservatives picking a new leader, and that will squeeze the popularist Reform Party, and then we'll end up with a coalition either of the centre-left, which would be a disaster, or of the centre-right.
Why is the word populist a four-letter word in politics?
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? I think it's seen as not having substance, as just appealing to the base, and yet it really does talk to what people want. You know, you've touched upon immigration, we touch on a whole variety of different issues, and so popularism is seen as sort of just appealing to the base views of the public. But I think that's what's got us to where we are today, which is where the vast majority of the British public really want radical change, and it's centre-right change that they want. So I welcome it. I welcome what Farage has done. He's dragged the whole debate to the right of British politics, and I think he should be celebrated for that.
Well, I think the word populist is an insult to our intelligence and an insult to the intelligence of voters, because there's an awful lot of substance in this so-called populism, including tearing up the ECHR, which 2 years ago would see you know, absolutely admonished and sidelined for such an outrageous suggestion. Now the Tories have it as their official policy. The idea of deporting people that participated in the Boris wave, indefinite leave to remain, and then, of course, stopping the boats unilaterally. So the conversation has shifted, but this is not empty words. This is real policy. Tear up the ECHR, revoke the Human Rights Act, look again at the Refugee Convention, reduce the size of the state. These are all policies for which the public seem to have a huge appetite.
Absolutely, and Labour are a million miles away from where the general public are. That's why this is the most unpopular government, unpopular Prime Minister in living memory. I mean, because they're just not on the same page as what the British public are on all those issues that you've just highlighted. You know, at 26th of November, it's the budget. Rachel Reeves is going to come in and she's going to put everybody's taxes up to pay for an inflated, bloated state, to pay for illegal immigrants that are coming over here. People have had enough of this. So yeah, I mean, we need a government of radical change.
Most definitely. Listen, folks, so we're going to talk about radical change next, because is Britain at breaking point when it comes to immigration? And more front pages. Don't go anywhere.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Lovely to have your company. Don't forget, at 8 o'clock, This Is Not a Drill, the monologue is back. In Dolan's dispatch, my blueprints for a reimagined, modernised British monarchy. Don't miss it. On the monarchy, have they now suffered irreparable damage? Are those that would seek to demolish and abolish our monarchy beginning to win the argument? This is a voice note from Anna in Surrey. Anna, take it away.
Morning, Mark. Anna, Surrey. You cannot sell the royal family to people in 2025. It's not fit for purpose. It's disgusting. One family live in opulence while some people out here slept out in that rain last night, Mark. People can't afford to eat. They can't afford to turn their heating on. People live in cardboard boxes. Families of 5 live in one room. They've got to go. I mean, they really turn my stomach. I mean, the final nail for that absolute carnival is that they've covered up the fact that their son, brother, please don't tell me the Queen didn't know. His close protection knew where he was. That meant their bosses knew where he was. That meant the royals knew where he was. Put them in a house somewhere and just give them a job as a figure that people can come and look at. But no more. Please don't try and sell us this. Cheers, Guy. Have a lovely day.
Anna, you've kicked us off brilliantly. What a great voice note. And I've got to say, that's very powerful what you've said. And that is a real worry for King Charles, that you feel that this institution is no longer fit for purpose. It could be plenty of others agree with you. I think support for the idea of having a monarchy is now below 70% of public opinion. So yes, it's a majority, but a dwindling one at that, which is why I'll be posing a question later in the show. Should Charles lay the groundwork for his own abdication so that William can have a crack at the top job? Michelle has messaged the show. Good morning, Mark. Love the show. Michelle from Altrincham here. I never miss a weekend. Well, thank you for that, Michelle. Lovely to have you with me. Andrew must be held accountable for his actions. He needs to go to America and face questioning, as suggested by Simon Danchuk. No more excuses or special treatment. It's time for the truth to come out and for him to take responsibility like anyone else would. And also, very kind words about the show from Michelle. And she says, please say happy birthday to my mum, Patricia. She watches you every weekend too. Patricia, happy birthday. I won't sing because I don't want to lose listeners and viewers. And poor engineer Dave is already of a fragile nature, so we won't sing. But can I just say, Patricia, a very happy birthday to you. I've got no doubt you did a great job raising lovely Michelle. What a fine mum you are, and I'm going to blow you a big kiss on your big day. Mwah! Have a good one, and happy birthday to anyone celebrating their birthday this weekend. Sharon says, Mark, I think if we dig more into Eugenie and Beatrice, we'll find things about them just like their parents. But next up, let's get to illegal immigration. And is the UK now at breaking point? Michael Deacon, writing in The Telegraph this week, has said it's time to declare a national emergency over violent crime by migrants. And it seems, Simon Danchuk, that a day doesn't go by that somebody that shouldn't be in this country harms or kills a British citizen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one story after another, isn't it? Where we see illegal immigrants broke into this country and then they're raping or murdering innocent people in the United Kingdom. Yeah. And it cannot go on. And so I think Michael Deacon's call for a national emergency in the Daily Telegraph today is absolutely right. I also think we need to see some direct action. People have had enough, and you know, those on the left in politics say, oh well, what can we do, how do we stop the boats? I think we need some direct action. I think we have to put the message out there quite clearly to those in Calais and France who are looking to come over into Britain. Listen, we are stopping the boats, and I think we have to have a serious conversation with the British Navy about how we stop the boats, and I think we have got to that position now. And so if it's a national emergency, which I do believe it is, then we have to take some direct action in terms of stopping the boats from coming in. And I think some direct action just over a couple of days would see the boats stop completely.
Well, I think that Sir Keir Starmer is a deeply inadequate Prime Minister, but if there's one thing we know about the guy, and of course you know him personally, having been a Labour MP, he's ambitious, he's ruthless, and he wants to remain Prime Minister. And that goes well ahead of any political principles. We know that because he's Captain U-turn. Is it possible, is it conceivable that he will shift to the right in regard to illegal immigration to save his own skin?
I don't think he would satisfy the British public. I think that's a really interesting question. He's tough on this issue, hasn't he? But he's never really implemented anything that's of any substance. The one in, one out policy clearly hasn't worked. He rejected the Rwanda plan, which I thought could work.
And this week, stories that within Labour circles, they're beginning to regret scrapping it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now they're looking for an alternative.
Yeah.
What an absolute waste of the money. And it's worth reminding viewers and listeners that Donald Trump is actually using a Rwanda plan. He's sending people to Rwanda. They're probably staying in the accommodation that we paid for. I mean, this is the reality of the situation. So he talks tough on illegal immigration, but I can't see Starmer taking direct action, instructing the Royal Navy to turn some of the boats around.
Even if it was existential for him.
You know, if he did it, he would, in fact, probably get a boost in the opinion polls, and he's in a very low position at the moment. But if he instructed the Royal Navy to turn some boats around, then I do think he would get some plaudits for that. But I can't imagine. He's too woke, he's too North London Labour to want to do this. I don't think he could face up to doing it.
No, and it would be a hard thing for him to tear up the ECHR as a former human rights lawyer.
Yeah.
That would be very tricky. Although, you know, obviously that's a question about how much he wants to remain Prime Minister, because I think that if Starmer, for his sins, if he unilaterally stopped the boats, that could be his Falklands moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be a significant shift.
I mean, he could call a snap election off the back of that.
Oh, quite possibly, actually. That is really interesting. If you look into the future, he's got the local elections in May. If he did something significant in early 2026, then he could get a boost. I just don't see it happening. And the pressure he would be under within his own party, I think, would be significant.
Most definitely. Where do you think the public are on illegal immigration? Because I don't know if you caught Question Time the other day, but there were a lot of loud applause for some of the more leftist panellists who were talking about open, borders and empathy and diversity is our strength and all of that stuff. Where do you think public opinion is on illegal immigration?
Well, in terms of dealing with Question Time, I used to really enjoy watching that programme many years ago, but I lost interest some time ago.
Why?
Well, I don't think it's a balanced audience. I don't think it's a reasonable audience. I think they pack it towards the left of politics, and this illustrates the point. All the opinion polling suggests that people are very unhappy with illegal immigration. That's the whole point of Michael Deacon's column in the Daily Telegraph today. He's talking about BBC reporters can't believe that people are unhappy with illegal immigration. That's the whole point of his article.
Yeah.
They're very unhappy about it. Question Time is skewed towards the left, the audience, in my view. The public have had enough of this, and it's one story after another.
So you're telling me that when you watch Question Time, that flow of debate and the narratives peddled within it are not representative of the national conversation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think actually, in terms of the bigger picture, it's a problem with the BBC. I wouldn't commonly visit the BBC website to get news and collect views, but it's so skewed, it's so out of touch with the general public that it's just not worth being a source of information.
Such as this week, the BBC, for which we pay an extortionate amount of money, are reluctant to share the full details of the murder of road sweeper and dog walker, a guy, 49-year-old man, slain in cold blood, a triple stabbing on the part of somebody that entered the country illegally in 2020, hidden in a truck, I think.
Yeah.
And only at the very bottom of the article do you get that detail from the BBC. It's just, British man murders another British man.
Yeah, and people can people can see through this, so they just switch off from the BBC as a news source, as I do, and you can't blame them. They just refuse to tell the story as it actually is.
Next up, the scandal of the treatment of Royal British Legion volunteers. You won't believe this. We're going to discuss that next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
So many calls and messages to get through. How about this from Sharon? I must admit, Mark, when I was watching Question Time this week, I couldn't believe these people were clapping and defending the illegal immigrants. It's so wrong that British people oppose illegal immigrants coming to our country. So I don't know what was happening on Question Time on Thursday. Well, I think that is the yawning gap, Sharon, between British public opinion and what you see on most television and radio networks. With me in the studio is the brilliant Simon Danczuk. Of course, he's an entrepreneur, writer and former MP. And Simon, a real scandal. Royal British Volunteers abused by left-wing activists whilst they put up a Remembrance Day poppy in a British town. You couldn't make it up, but it's not a surprising story, is it?
It isn't a surprise, but it's exceptionally disappointing. This is just outside Cardiff in South Wales. Some people have been decorating, putting Union Jacks up and putting poppies up, as they do every autumn, to celebrate those that fought in the armed services for Britain. And yet they get harangued and verbally abused by a gang of left-wingers. Good news is that the police are investigating it.
Well, most definitely. And it's important that we remember that the freedom that we enjoy in 2025 is thanks to those who gave their lives in 2 world wars, who faced down tyranny and fascism. And this is the great legacy of those who served and those who sacrificed so much. But I'm not sure the current generation understand that. I mean, last night I remembered that I needed my poppy so I can broadcast, because I've got to, it's critically important as a public figure to represent the cause. And I had to go to 3 different supermarkets to find a poppy in the first place.
It's not as easy as it used to be, is it?
No.
Which is quite saddening. But I think it is important that we mark these Remembrance Days. And as an observation, I noticed 1 or 2 Green councillors, Green politicians, wearing a white poppy, which is a symbol of being a pacifist. You don't want war. But if it was, it's important to realise that if we didn't have our armed forces fighting for Britain, then they wouldn't even have a right to wear a white poppy. It's because of the people who are in the armed services.
The white poppy is a slap in the face to those who died, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely. What does it say about the Green Party as a political party? If it doesn't stand up for the armed services, who does it stand up for?
There wouldn't be a Green Party if it wasn't those people that gave their lives.
Exactly, that's the irony of all this.
It is wild, and it ties in with this Britain-hating narrative that we see, I'm afraid to say, predominantly on the political left.
Yes, absolutely. Though the good news is, trying to see a positive in all of this, is that the greater public are beginning to push back at all this, and they're coming to realise that the position we've been going in, the direction we've been going in, is not the direction they want the country to end up in. I
mean, you have to wonder, may God forbid, if there was another world war, who would actually fight for this country? And here's another question: what would you be fighting for?
Yeah,
would you be fighting for extremists walking down the street chanting "from the river to the sea"?
Well, exactly. That's not what you would want to fight for, is it? No, absolutely. That's why we've got it so wrong. We've gone in the completely wrong direction politically, and that's why we're now seeing a reverse of that.
Simon, a really sad story in the Express today. Our daughter should have been in court to see her attacker held accountable. This, of course, is a young woman who served in the military, and she suffered a campaign of sexual harassment by a senior officer who gets 12 weeks in prison.
Yeah.
And she took her own life because of the stress.
Yeah, that's right. A warrant officer just abusing her and only gets 12 weeks. It's totally tragic. And the article, I think I'm right in saying, suggests that women aren't safe in the armed forces.
Yeah, that's right.
And that it does raise that question. If you can't guard against this sort of thing, then it's a very, very, very sad situation.
Simon,
Tragic.
You couldn't make it up, could you? The left-wing Resolution Foundation are now opposing Labour's workers' rights legislation. Right, and the Resolution Foundation, one of Labour's favourite think tanks, and a development on that in today's Express. Workers' rights will be the death knell for jobs. Labour's workers' rights legislation could cost taxpayers billions of pounds in welfare claims each year. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately says that the Employment Rights Bill would condemn thousands to claim benefits. She said Conservative estimates suggest hundreds of thousands of jobs could be lost or never even created as a result of this bill. The bottom line is, if you make it harder and more expensive for companies to employ people, then employ people they will not.
That is exactly right. And this week I had, we were talking about me being involved in business. I had a meeting this week with a close friend of mine who runs a business network in the north of England, and he's on the left of politics, I have to say, but he was saying that this is a disaster for exactly this reason you gave. give. Businesses will not employ people if they have to give them rights immediately on day one of their employment. The Employment Rights Bill that's coming forward is going to kill jobs. There's no doubt about that, and that's not me saying that. That's people involved in business who are normally creating jobs. There'll be hesitancy to employ people, and it's worth remembering this government have already, through national insurance increases, increased the unemployment rate quite considerably.
Is there a chance that you may run as a prospective parliamentary candidate for Reform UK at the next election?
I've not really given that much consideration. I'm not sure if they would want me, and I suspect that they have lots of people coming forward who they want to get into government.
Could I be so rude as to ask why they wouldn't want you, given your stature and experience?
Well, I don't know.
Do you feel a little unloved by the party?
Oh no, not particularly, but I just I'm a great believer in saying what I think, and that's what I did when I was a Labour MP, and that's what I would do
when you called out the grooming gangs.
Yeah, absolutely, and it didn't do me any good politically, but I feel I got it exactly right, and that's what's important to me.
I mean, is Reform UK a place which is unwelcoming to diverse voices? Is it a little bit of a top-down sort of structure?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think it's broadened its appeal as a political organisation. It's regular conferences. It's now got a board in place. People are elected to it. So I think it's moving in the right direction. But it still has a long way to go before the general election, I think.
Personally, I think you'd be a feather in their cap as a common-sense former Labour MP, because this is the point about the realignment of British politics. There are lots of old-school lefties who are very aligned with the reform cause.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because the Labour Party that I joined has moved radically to the left, to this wokeism agenda, and left traditional Labour people like me way behind. I've always been tough on illegal immigration, tough on benefit cheats, get people back into work, tough on crime, but Labour's just, the new Labour Party that we see today is nowhere near that.
Well, that's right, and it was under Tony Blair and I believe the Home Secretary John Reid who coined the term hostile environment for people that shouldn't be in the country. It wasn't a Tory Home Secretary. It was Labour. Tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime, education, and by the way, low taxes. The top rate of tax under Blair for most of that administration was 40%. So, it wasn't all bad, was it? And I think, therefore, what you're going to see with Reform UK is a big sort of, significant spectrum of opinion within that broad church. The only issue you've got is, how do Reform UK cut the size of the states when many of the people that vote for that party are dependent on the support of the state?
Yes, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because there's no doubt about it, they have to make some radical cuts. And we saw this week Lee Anderson announcing changes to benefit claims around mental health issues, so saying that only those with significant mental health issues will be able to claim benefits. And I think that's right. I think we have to take some radical steps in terms of reducing the benefits bill.
If Reform is swept to power on the back of the working class vote, then shrinking the state and cutting welfare is going to be painful, isn't it?
Well, it's how you do it, and I think a lot of those that are going out to work who are earning a living aren't claiming benefits or aren't claiming that much in benefits. So it's where you cut it. I think we have a whole group of people who are claiming benefits who aren't reform supporters by any stretch, but most importantly they're taking advantage of the system, and I think that's where we need to make the cuts.
Because if we're honest, we're going to need austerity times 100, aren't we, at the next election, because this country lives beyond its means.
Yeah, completely beyond its means. I mean, another 10 years, I mean, we will be financially distressed, to say the least, and we're getting close to that now. We're borrowing far too much to keep us in the position that we currently are.
Philip in Northern Ireland, Simon, has messaged the show. Why do you report about the poppy people being harassed in Wales when they're threatened yearly in Northern Ireland and nothing is mentioned? Also, a lot of love for Simon Danchuk this morning. I think Simon would be perfect for the Reform Party. That's Sharon in Staffordshire. And David said, I'm a monarchist and the thought of a political president is awful. P.S. Please ask Simon, will he stand in the town next time. He's in Lancashire, so I don't know which part of Lancashire, but there you go. You've got plenty of plaudits there. Maybe Nigel's listening.
You never know.
And you're going to get a WhatsApp.
We'll see.
It's got to be done. Listen, Simon, what a thrill to have you in the studio. Do come and see us again soon. Common sense talking, former Labour MP, reform defector no less. Simon Danchuk, also an entrepreneur and best-selling author as well. Lots more to come. We've got tomorrow's front pages. Don't forget, at 8 a.m. in just an hour's time, this is not a drill. The monologue is back in today's Dolan's Dispatch. My blueprint for a modernised royal family 2.0. Plus, what do you think? Should Charles consider preparing the groundwork for his own abdication in order to give William a chance and to save this venerated institution? 0344 499 1000. Got some top guests, some big opinions, and lots more to come. Keep it talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, the very top of the morning to you. It is 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast. Your weekend starts here. A big 3 hours to come. Andrew loses his title. He's no longer a prince, but has the problem gone away? Was King Charles too slow to act? And has the royal family now suffered irreparable damage? Do you still believe in the monarchy? What next for this venerated institution? Should Charles think the unthinkable and pave the way for his abdication and usher in the reign of King William? in an effort to modernise, refresh and reinvigorate the institution. Also today, almost 1 in 8 prisoners, 1 in 8, are now foreign nationals. And the cost of accommodating each of these individuals is £53,000 a year. It would be cheaper to send them to Eton. More shocking statistics about the levels of illegal immigration into the country. Is Britain now at breaking point? Plus, is it time to scrap foreign aid as it's revealed that a £52 million road to nowhere through the Amazon jungle is being built using taxpayers' cash in order to help the climate? I mean, seriously, if that's not a metaphor, because Britain, folks, is on the road to nowhere. And the road to hell. Choose your own metaphors. And this is not a drill, the monologue is back. I'll be dealing with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in no uncertain terms and laying out my blueprint for a modernised, fit-for-purpose monarchy for 2025 and for the 21st century. That's right, that's today's Dolan's Dispatch in an hour's time. It's punchy, OK? It might get me cancelled. Good. I hope you had a good Halloween. I made the children cry. I dressed up as Rachel Reeves. Rachel from Accounts. But it's Halloween all year under this Labour government, isn't it? Folks, give me strength. Listen, I want you to book your place on the show. 03444991000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note as well. So much to get through. Don't forget Dolan's Dispatch in an hour's time. A busy hour to come. As the saying goes, let's talk. And let's get you up and started with tomorrow's front pages today. The Daily Mail. William and Kate pushed for Andrew to be ousted. That's the front page of the Mail. How will Andrew cope with the bleak reality of his new life in exile, asked Richard Kay. Robert Hardman, this is royal cancellation. Andrew is reduced to a traitor. And why Fergie's daughters are more upset with her than with Andrew. A Daily Express, army is not safe for young women. The devastated mother of tragic gunner Jaisley Beck claims the army is no longer safe for young women after the soldier who sexually assaulted her daughter was jailed for just 12 weeks. Daily Telegraph, MPs push to stop Andrew's succession. Don't forget he remains 8th in line to the throne. And UK aid, as I've just mentioned, wasted on a £52 million road to nowhere in the Amazon. Weekend, Andrew to get £500,000 payout for Royal Lodge, but now faces a huge repair bill. Truck off, the brilliant and rather inventive Daily Star, have parked a massive removals van in front of Windsor Castle, offering to help Andy with the move over to Sandringham. The Daily Mirror next, downfall of a prince. King listened to the people. Heckler was a final straw as political pressure grew. Fresh calls for shamed Andrew to face cop probe. How about the Guardian newspaper? Andrew to receive six-figure sum and stipend from the King. The Times newspaper, Andrew quit fight after losing loyalty of ex-wife Sarah Ferguson. And the Sun newspaper, Britain's best-selling national newspaper, 3 months to quit Lodge. We can't bear him either. Humiliated Andrew Windsor has 3 months to clear all of his teddy bears and get out of the Royal Lodge. The former prince and his collection of 72 cuddly toys must quit the 30-room Windsor mansion by the end of January. Well, just like those bears, Andrew is stuffed. Folks, let's get reaction to the big stories of the day. In the company of a really good friend of mine, I'm a massive fan, Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard detective. Morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Listen, you're looking very sprightly this morning and probably in better humour than Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. A quick one on that, though. This guy, Michael, is going to see out his years on the Sandringham estate. He'll be putting a log on the fire. He'll have a little cognac at 5 in the afternoon in order to fire up his appetite for a meal cooked by courtiers. It's not exactly a punishment, is it?
It's not really. I've always been a Cromwellian, really, me. So I'm happy to play the game and call people sir, but you're always, in the army, you're always taught you can call any idiot sir. You're referring to the rank. So,
yeah.
And he's just, and I know he's... from the police, I know one of his protection officers who described him as a very arrogant, horrible person. So he's got his comeuppance, hasn't he? Hopefully, but as you say, it isn't as much of a comeuppance as most people. He'll live in luxury, but I think he will be very bitter. He's a man who likes being called sir, and he likes titles and all that. Yeah. And it's a shame, isn't it, really, with these people who are spares, that he did so well in the Royal Navy. He would have been better staying there, wouldn't he? Like Harry would have been better staying in the army, doing something useful, contributing, being respected. Instead, he got himself involved in all sorts of wicked sleaze in the time.
Well, that's right, because I've been reading Andrew Lowney's excellent book about, the fall of the House of York, and in particular looking at Andrew's very checkered history professionally and privately. The only positive from that book that I can find about Andrew is that he was quite a respected figure within the military, quite brave, and participated in the Falklands War.
Absolutely, he had all that, just like Harry was in Afghanistan. The moment they threw that out and they left, what do? They've got nothing to do, and the vacuum is filled with sleaze and stupidity, as we see with Harry.
And you did the opposite. You came out of the military and then went into the police force.
That's right, like a lot of people used to do, but not anymore, unfortunately.
Well, no, and perhaps the streets would be safer if we did have more folks taking that journey from the military into the police force, which of course is now called the police service, which makes it sound like a call centre, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit wet. Sir Robert Peel, who set up the Metropolitan Police, was a very, very clever man. And he said at the time, I don't want gentlemen as police officers, I want sergeants from the Guards regiments. And if they carried on that tradition, the police would be far more effective than they are today. They worry too much about DEI and nonsense like that.
Yeah.
And I was always told in the police, the more diversity we have, the more trust we'll have from communities. Well, how come the more diverse the police has got, the trust and confidence in the police is at rock bottom?
Most definitely, and crime has soared.
Yeah.
Mike, I don't know if this story caught your eye this week of the private members clubs that are sort of connected to the military are facing a sort of woke overhaul in which, you sort of gentlemen-only areas and certain topics that might be politically incorrect are going to be banned. Is this a further erosion of the traditions of this country?
Well, I think people should be free to do what they want. I admit I'm a Freemason. I'm very proud of that. I make lots of money for charity through the Freemasons. And I just think sometimes people's private life should be left alone. And how does this impact on women's-only clubs? For example, me as a Freemason, there are lady Freemasons lodges and no men are allowed in. But why can't we just allow people to get on with their lives, enjoy what they want and be who they are? But they always interfere. And we know that a woman can't be a Catholic priest. In the mosque, men and women are separated. So at what point do you say, this is unacceptable? You just say, this is how people want to live their life. Freedom of religion, freedom of association. Leave things alone. We've got a lot more worries in the world, haven't we?
Well, I agree, and I actually think that single-sex spaces are still quite special, and I think that sometimes gentlemen like to have their own company, and I think that ladies the same.
Absolutely.
The story is that army officers, Mike, have been ordered to disassociate themselves from private members' clubs that refuse to allow female soldiers to join. Lieutenant General David Eastman told regiments to review their affiliations with exclusive organisations that restrict women from joining or bar them from accessing certain rooms, urging troops to advocate for change. In a letter seen by the Telegraph, the Deputy Chief of General Staff said it was critical to assess the links between army units and the clubs to determine whether they were still appropriate. And this all ties in, doesn't it, with the diversity, equity and inclusion culture, which has completely destroyed the police force and looks like it's going to have the same effect on the military.
That's the problem I have, and I saw it in the police. I've seen the utter erosion of the effectiveness of the police. The police used to solve about 20% of crimes about 10 or 15 years ago, which isn't very good. Like burglaries, they used to solve 15% of burglaries 10 years ago. Now they're solving 5%. So whilst 15% is woeful, 5% is treble woeful. And what happens is if senior officers focus on the wrong thing, like the police, where they don't focus on their primary objective, this is where we end up. And it's sad, really, because I was proud to be a regular soldier.
1 in 8 British prisoners is a foreign criminal, and the accommodation of each of these individuals is over £50,000 a year. It would be cheaper to send them to Eton. Welcome, Michael, to Broken Britain.
Yeah, exactly. So 12.5% are foreign criminals. They should be deported. There's no doubts about that. But as we saw with the character who got the £500 to be deported to Ethiopia, the problem I have is the justice for the victims. In this sense, there's got to be a halfway house, because if they're simply deported, if you get deported back to Ethiopia, and what do you do in England? Oh, I touched up some girls. Oh, that's completely acceptable. Like, you know, you can just go free.
Yep.
So the victims have got to see some kind of retribution and punishment of these people. But once that retribution and punishment is done, they should be shipped out, and they should not be this Kabatu character. They should not be shipped out with £500. It's just it insults the nation. More in particular, it insults the victims. It's just totally unacceptable.
And of course, we should be deporting foreign criminals. I mean, I spoke to a former prison officer yesterday on the show who said to me that an appropriate figure, because as you mentioned, it's over 10,000 people that are currently accommodated who are foreign criminals. She said that a figure of 1,000 would be more appropriate. 10% of where we currently are.
Yeah, it's just totally shocking. But the other thing I picked up on the reports I'm reading is that, the government say, we built 2,500 new prison places. There just doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency. They should have built 20,000 prisons. They had a year, 18 months. They could have built camps and all sorts during that time, and they just mess around. But I really think with the Labour Party, they think all criminals are victims anyway. They haven't got the heart in it. There's no will to lock people up.
Yeah.
They think that people who steal, you hear things like, people are stealing baby milk, the children must be starving. No, they're not. It's an organised racket. A lot of that baby milk is shipped out to Vietnam. It's like an organised crime. A lot of booze that's stuff. The person who steals 4 legs of lamb isn't eating those 4 legs of lamb. No. They're selling it on to buy drugs or whatever else they take. And this government, as I say, they haven't got the heart in either stopping the migrants or putting people in prison.
Shock news statistics about the total failure of the 1 in, 1 out deal. I want to ask your opinion on this. Is Britain now at breaking point? Let me know, 0344 499 1000. In terms of illegal and legal net migration, are we now at the point of no return? Let me know your thoughts on that. So much more to come. Keep it talk.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Is Britain at breaking point when it comes to illegal immigration? 0344 499 1000. Is there any hope that this Labour government will tackle the issue? Let me know your thoughts. What is your prescription for dealing with this problem? How about this for a headline in today's Daily Express? It is 75 out and 16,000 in as deal with France flops. 75 Channel migrants have now been returned to France under Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal with Emmanuel Macron. The Home Office said 20 were sent back on Thursday, following 13 on October the 22nd. Hip, 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 hooray. 51 asylum seekers have now arrived in the UK under the scheme and undergone full documentation, security and eligibility checks. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philps said a handful of immigrants have now been returned through the deal, while nearly 16,000 illegal immigrants have crossed the Channel since the deal was announced, meaning that we've allowed 99.5% to stay. Mike Neville, it's not working. Is Britain at breaking point?
I think it is, and people are seeing this, and it's now playing out where the government can't conceal it. So for many, many years, and I revealed that the figures about street robbery in the 90s, and the government and the Labour Party under Blair then attacked the commissioner who released those stats.
Yeah.
And what's been happening over the last few decades is to cover up anybody who mentioned a connection between immigration and crime was immediately denounced as a racist. And most people didn't see it in the sense that it was a very inner city problem, you know, if you were in Birmingham or London or Manchester perhaps. Now, of course, these crimes are spreading. Everybody's getting a taste of it. You know, I live near Stafford, Epping, for example. Everywhere's getting... So people are seeing with their own eyes what's going on. And they see crimes occurring. Look at Uxbridge, a treble stabbing, a dreadful murder of the bin man who was out just walking his dog. And people are now seeing this, and the government can't carry on. You know, and it's all over the West. So I was over in Germany in 2015 when there's a lot of sex assaults. The government tried to cover it up there. In Sweden, the government's an establishment tried to cover up the massive crime wave that's come from immigration in Sweden, and all these places. But it's crumbling now because it's so obvious it's a bad thing that people are talking about it. Luckily, we've got stations like Talk which actually reveal this rather than the BBC who tell us everything's absolutely fan-dabby-dozy and nothing can be done about it. But I just think people really are worried. As I've said before on here, that, you know, I've had to speak to my young daughters about being safe in Bournemouth, which should be the quintessential nice English place, and it isn't good enough. And we're putting particularly women and girls at risk, but as we saw in Uxbridge, men as well, for no reason.
Most definitely, and it's not just sexual assaults and that kind of harassment. It's just women being stared at as they go about their daily lives. Just creepy behaviour, men hanging around on street corners. That is not the British way.
It's not some, you know, I spoke to my daughters about parks. I walked through a park in the New Forest, and there's all these people who are obviously not from the New Forest there, and all glaring and whatever else.
Smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, and no women there. So any woman would feel afraid to go through that park, where it was just a nice open space. And it's no good than just declaring everybody's racist. That tactic of the left has failed. You know, and the other dreadful thing I think we saw was the march in Whitechapel, where people were shouting all sorts of phrases.
This
Islamic
is basically
gangs,
hundreds of masked men.
Yeah,
very intimidating.
Yeah, shouting Allahu Akbar, and then what sums it up is the left think they're on their side, and they're not, are they? You're sort of like, oh, we're all on the same side, bruv. No, we're not.
Yeah.
And so that it just shows this divided Britain. And again, I've said it before. The only thing that Keir Starmer's ever said that I agree with is, "Oh, we're an island of strangers," and then he retracted it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't fit in with the cult of multiculturalism which the left have pursued as a sort of religion.
Well, definitely, and he didn't write that line. Whoever did write that line should be the Prime Minister, because it was actually pitch perfect as a thing to say. We are becoming an island of strangers, and not just that, an island of individuals that we're importing who are a clear and present danger to the British way of life. That is provably the case. The question I've got for you is twofold. Clearly, we need to stop the boats, and we'll likely have to wait 3.5 years for that to happen, and an administration with the political will to do something about it. So that's going to be the first thing. Tony Smith, former head of UK Border Force, has said that if you tear up the ECHR, if you revoke the Human Rights Act and look again at the Refugee Convention, you can stop the boats. This is not snake oil politics. We can stop the boats. You can also call the head of the Navy and turn those boats around. And I think that reform would have the political will to do that. So stop the boats is one thing, but even if we achieve that, Mike, is the damage done? How do we fix this damaged, lawless society that we've now got?
It's just terrible, isn't it? I mean, even Nigel Farage has changed his language, hasn't he? At one time we can't do mass deportations. Now he's even talking about the same. We've got
But you can't get rid of all of them, can you?
You can't get rid of all of them, but what we can do is we can have... One is the will. You've mentioned that. Unless you have the will to crack crime, you won't crack. This government doesn't have the will to crack crime. As I said, they think criminals are victims. They think the people coming across on the boats are victims. That's why Starmer says about smashing the gangs. The gangs are bad people. The people in the boat are the victims of the gangs. That's their mindset. So we have to get it. No, they're illegal. They're illegal. They're criminals who are entering the country. So the will is as follows. So externally, use the Navy. We have offshore boats. If they land on the beach, we have armies. We have troops all on the beach. They're captured and taken out to this offshore place and processed there and sent back to France. Internally, we sort out the police force. We smash all diversity targets. No more diversity targets. The police's job is to crack crime. And then for things like, we don't say this 40% in prison term. No, it's a lie, isn't it? We tell people the person's going to prison for 5 years, and they don't go to prison for 5 years. They're there for about a year or 18 months.
Yeah.
We need to enforce that. So we need to build lots of prisons and lock up bad people, because the primary role of the government is to keep its citizens safe. And at the moment, it's failing miserably. It's letting bad people who we know nothing of, who may be very, very bad, as we see with murders and rapes and assaults, and then internally, we're letting people out after 40% of their time. And I go back to an example. When I was a young PC, I stopped this guy and thought, oh, is he out of prison? Because only like 3 or 4 years ago, he was sentenced to 9 years for rape, and he'd broken into a house, so 2 years for burglary. Now, in anybody's head, 9 plus 2 equals 11 years in prison, but it doesn't, does it? Because the 2 years is served as part of the 9 years, and then he gets out after 50%, so that's 4.5. So in this mad world of justice that we call it, 9 plus 2 equals 4.5, and today 9 plus 2 would equal about 3.5.
Yeah.
And it's just wrong.
Do we focus, though, disproportionately on migrant crime?
No, I don't think we do, because people can see why we're bringing people in. And the statistic I go back to is this. People tell me, oh, it's... No. In 1951, there's 8 million people in London. There's now 9 million people in London. Yeah. So there's hardly any change of actual numbers. Yeah. But in 1951, there was 214 robberies. In the entire year, there's 214 robberies every 2 days in London right now. And the change is the demographics of the... We brought in people from countries where violent crime is just every day. And if you bring in people whose whole life is around violent crime, it's going to be imported here. And that's what we've done.
And it becomes normalised.
It does become normalised.
And it's like boiling a frog. It's happened over a few years. The public haven't noticed until it's too late.
as I've said, the people now noticing, everybody's now having a share of it because these asylum hotels are all over the place. Bournemouth, for example, and those places are you've got real issues, and you've got, well, luckily, a place like Bournemouth, the citizens have taken some action. They've formed a sort of safeguard force where they can patrol the streets and try and keep people safe, but even the police are resisting that. So we've got to do something, and as I say, the police need sorting out, leadership needs sorting out, the prisons need sorting out, but the key thing is having politicians who want to do it.
Most definitely. And can those who we are stuck with be rehabilitated?
I don't know. I really don't know. They're a real threat. We have people here who believe that the West... Why did they come here? They believe the West is wicked. They want to change the way we are.
Anyone that doesn't believe in their religion is an infidel.
Yeah, that's exactly...
White girls are worthless trash.
How can we manage this? What we've got to do, and again, look at London. Suddenly, there was no grooming gangs. Now there's 9,000 cases. So these have got to be dealt with. But we've got to be ruthless and build enough prisons to put people in who do evil things, and then look at how do we get rid of them. If they've got dual nationality, for example, well, the other country can have them back then, can't they? We don't want them here.
And why are foreign criminals read their verdict in court by a translator?
How much money does that cost? You know, they can...
I mean, if I was to mug someone in Spain on holiday and I'm in court and everything's in Spanish, I'm just thinking, fair play. I mean, you know, what are you going to do? I've gone to Spain, I've been a bad person, and I'm now basically subject to the law of the land.
Well, you wouldn't want to do bad things in Saudi Arabia, even worse, would you? Or places like that. Singapore, where you'd be ruthlessly dealt with. But we just need to crack down. But as I've no faith whatsoever in this government today. And I have no faith really in the Tories. They talk a good game, but look at the mess they made of it last time.
Well, definitely, I think it's almost unfair on Starmer and his ilk to blame everything on them. I think that they've just got into power at the point where all of this has come to like a tipping point.
But it did come
to pass the parcel.
What's amazing with the prison places that got me, you know, we've got like 90,000 prison places. You think an alarm would go off when 80,000 were filled.
Yeah.
No, but they didn't really notice until they had 1% left. Who is running? This just shows how rubbish.
Well, of course, you know, one of my sort of hobby horses is the pandemic and the COVID response. And of course, one of the things with the crazy COVID overreaction is that they stopped the prison building program because of the pandemic and the challenges of
the question is, who are the COVID idiots now? Who are the COVID idiots now? We know who the COVID idiots were. The ones who fell for it.
Why does it cost £54,000 a year per criminal to accommodate them in jail?
Well, I suppose the way that's worked out is that they look at the whole prison estate, they look at the cost of all the prison officers and simply divide it by the number.
It could be less, couldn't it?
It could be less, but what you have, in essence, is even if it was empty, it would cost that amount of money because you still have to employ the prison officers. It's like in the police station, they'll say, oh, if you're putting them in a police station, it costs X amount. Well, the sergeant is already on duty looking after 10 cells.
Yeah.
Whether those cells are empty or full. So you have to pay for that. So sometimes these figures are not as simple as...
It can be a bit misleading.
A bit misleading.
Although definitely there should be an absolutely determined effort to bring down the cost of accommodating criminals, especially if we want more prison places. And therefore, I think the idea of Nightingale prisons is outstanding.
Absolutely. Well, a few less PlayStations and colour TVs might assist and bring it down. You know, that you can have Haribo's or... What's all this nonsense? I didn't see that on porridge. You know, you can choose your sweets. And what we need is more Mr. Mackay's and not 18-year-old girls. We see all this scandal of sex in the prisons and all this. All these stories, I think, they just sum up how bad Britain is, that things just don't work. And you know, why women in men's prisons? Why men in women's prisons? It's just ridiculous nonsense. And it's a common sense thing that's gone very, very badly wrong.
You served with distinction in the armed forces. I'll leave you with this one, Mike. Daily Express. Army is not safe for young women. The devastated mother of tragic gunner Jaisley Beck claims that the army is no longer safe for young women after the soldier who sexually assaulted her daughter was jailed for just 12 weeks. Warrant Officer Michael Webber will serve only half a 6-month term behind bars. Your reaction to this story?
Terrible, absolutely terrible, devastating for the family. And I think what's happened, when I was in the army, what happened, the women had their own units and they were protected really by other women, and I think they were safer when that happened. and I think that would have kept her safe.
Yes, but of course that wouldn't be politically correct, wouldn't it, to have women sort of only units now. Mike, you always talk so much sense. I want to go back and listen to all of that, write it down and make it government policy, because I quite honestly, I don't disagree with the word. But listen, come back and see us again soon. Retired Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. You, by the way, do a very exciting other job, which is you do these tours.
Yeah, I'm a crime historian.
And you do these murder tours, don't you?
Yeah, I do crime and murder tours. I'll be out tonight pounding the Jack the Ripper beat.
There you go.
Solving that top crime.
Good luck catching him.
Thank you.
Whoever that so-and-so is. Folks, your calls next. In terms of illegal immigration, is Britain now at breaking point? And Prince Andrew has lost his title, but has the problem gone away?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Is Britain now at breaking point? Chris is in Epsom. Good morning, Chris. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. It's always interesting to listen to what Mike has to say as well.
Isn't it? And don't you mourn that sort of old school policing that we could really do with in 2025?
I'm 64, mate, so I've got plenty of clips around the ear when I was younger.
I know. I mean, it's not a bad thing to be slightly afraid of a policeman, is it?
No, if I'd have gone home and told my father that the local beat cop had given me a clip for scrumping or doing whatever I used to get up to, he'd have given me another one.
Yeah, well, that's it. Cops had authority and that little bit of fear, and that's why life was, a lot safer. What do you think about the state of the country? Are we at breaking point?
Well, I'm 64, so the country has changed drastically from what I remember what I grew up in and what I put a uniform on. I served for 6 years. Immigration
I salute you for that, yeah.
Thank you. Immigration now is the key topic because it impacts on every other walk of British life, whether that's housing, benefits. We're nearly broke. We've got another massive black hole that Reeves is going to come and punish everybody for in November. We've been told lies. Let's take a couple of examples, all right? The legal migration, the wave from what's been now named the Boris wave.
Yeah.
There was an example from one of the Border Force employees where they stopped 3 Nigerian women that were coming in, and they checked their visas, and they were coming in to work within the care industry, which is fair enough. We know it's a relatively low-paid job.
Yeah.
For what they're coming in for. Although to get professional care, all right, is incredibly expensive if you want care at home. 3 of them were coming in. Each of them had a husband, all right, and each of them had 3 children. So that was 12 people coming in for 3 low-paid jobs.
Well, we are therefore we're on the hook there for millions of pounds in welfare payments.
That's what I'm saying. That's why they're never going to be productive members. They're always going to draw. They're always going to be taking from the pot rather than putting in it. Then we have the absolute ludicrousy of 1 in, 1 out. And let's take the first example of it. We had one come in that we then got the French to agree that his paperwork was good and we could send him back to France. So we sent him back to France. So they sent one back. But they didn't send one back. They sent the guy, his wife and his child, because they'd been previously vetted. So they would have got immediate indefinite leave to remain, which meant they would have family reunion. So we saved some money on the court fees and we allowed the 3 in as 1.
Yeah.
The one that goes back to France, we still pay the French for his food and accommodation. And now they want, Lamy is saying that, well, that works wonderfully, and they want to expand it to Holland, Belgium, and Germany. It's ludicrous. When the people are beginning to wake up, but when are we going to wake up enough to say enough is enough?
Well, this is exactly right. It feels like a racket at the moment. We're being taken the mick of, aren't we, Chris? And I don't see it getting better anytime soon. I mean, are there any green shoots of hope within this Labour government? Because the issue we've got, Chris, I predict that there will be a seismic political change in 3.5 years' time. But what's going to happen between now and then?
You know, that's the major problem, Mark. I mean, you've got Shabama Mahmood, right?
Yeah.
Who is now the Home Secretary in charge of policing and immigration and borders, all right?
Yeah.
This is a woman that 10 years ago is filmed on Lampedusa welcoming refugees from Africa. This is a woman that is filmed just a couple of years ago demonstrating outside of a Sainsbury's to boycott them because they sell goods from Israel.
Yeah.
This is a woman that claimed that she pulled all the levers of power and got that dirtbag from Epping sent back to Ethiopia. Then we find out, well, we already had a returns agreement with Ethiopia, but we still paid him £500 to get on the plane quietly.
You really couldn't make it up. Chris, you are 64. How has life changed for you in all your years in this country?
Well, Mark, I worked in several industries. I got to good levels in several industries, ending up a business development director in 7 companies in the travel industry. And I'm lucky enough, I've had a great life. I've travelled the world. I've met amazing people. For the last 10 years, I'd stopped work to look after my mother and father. My father's now passed. We got through the pandemic. Unfortunately, he passed in 23. And my mother's bedridden with Parkinson's and dementia and stage 3 kidney disease and a few other things as well.
I'm so sorry.
And I'm just going through, we've self-funded, completely self-funded since 2010. But now the self-funding's gone and I'm having to fill out all the paperwork and take advice from the Citizens Advice Bureau because there's nothing left in the pot.
And Chris, you're someone that's never, I would imagine, never taken a penny out of the system in your adult life.
No, never have. The thing is that I've burnt through my pensions. I've burnt through the majority of an inheritance that I had to the point where there's no asset left to leverage. So I've got to throw myself at the government, and I find
And now it's going to be like absolute torture trying to get money, like blood out of a stone, I would have thought.
It's seeming that way, although I will give the local council their due. So far, they've been very good. I should have been claiming from 2016, but I just kept it going ourselves.
But the issue we've got, Chris, is that there's more people that take from the system than someone like yourself, who in 2016 didn't even think of asking the state for cash, and that's the problem with the country, isn't it?
I think it is. My advice to anybody out there would be that go and speak to your local Citizens Advice Bureau and see what you are entitled to claim, because they will take everything that you've got and you won't get any thanks for it. You won't be looked at as being any better than anybody else. In fact, you'll be looked at as being a fool.
Yeah, Chris, yeah, you're so right about that. Well, look, wishing your mum all the best. She read a good one, and she's very lucky to have you, but it's not easy, is it, to have an older parent that's got major health challenges. Chris in Epsom there. Chris in Epsom saying that it all comes down to immigration, and I have to say, I think it really does. Next up, Andrew has lost his title, but has the problem gone away? We'll get to that next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Jan has messaged the show. She said, Mark, retired cop Mike Neville, your guest, he should be Prime Minister. I agree with everything he says. Unfortunately, we have a government with no competency or will for the next 3 years plus. God help us. Hi, Mark, says Terry in Slough. I'm 76 and in my opinion, this useless, incompetent Labour government are the worst I've seen in my lifetime. I wouldn't trust this lot to run a raffle, never mind this great country of ours. Steve in Dorset, regarding cross-channel illegal immigration, is Britain at breaking point? Well, Steve says this is basically now a ferry service. At the point of rescue, the expensive boats are not impounded, nor are the pilots arrested. Instead, they are allowed to turn round and pick up the next load. This is now simply an alternative form of transport. And on prisons, this is quite extraordinary. 1 in 8 prisoners in this country is a foreign criminal, each of them costing £53,000 a year. Great show, Mark, says Steve. Prisons for me is a simple fix. Separate violent criminals from the others, open lower security prisons for low-level offenders, train new recruits here alongside a few veterans, slowly exposing them to the more extreme prisoners. And all prisoners follow the shift patterns of the guards. If it's good enough to have the guards have their lunch at 4 a.m, then it's more than fine for the prisoners too. I'll get to more of your messages on the national TV and radio airwaves very shortly. Lovely to have your company. Prince Andrew has lost his title, but has the problem gone away? Let's get the views of a good friend of mine, broadcaster, historian and fellow at the New Culture Forum, Rafe Heidel-Manku. Good morning, Rafe. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Do you think Charles was a little slow to act in dealing with his brother, Prince Andrew?
I don't think he was slow to act. Firstly, we have to understand that he acted once it became known that Prince Andrew had clearly lied with the release of emails which the palace was unaware of, which unequivocally showed that he had maintained contact with Epstein long after he claimed to have severed all connections. Up to that point, it was very much a case of Prince Andrew having been deemed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Remember, he hasn't been tried of anything. His statements were taken on face value. He was found to have lied. And so it was at that point that His Majesty acted, and I think that was entirely right.
Will it do the job? Has the problem now gone away, do you think?
I would hope with all reasonable people it will have gone away. It's hard to think what more His Majesty could do. His Majesty has literally done everything within his power to strip Prince Andrew of all of his positions, all of his titles. He's been sent to Coventry, not literally to Coventry, but Sandringham is close enough. Yeah. I mean, there is, of course, the... I said a long time ago that it would be best for all involved if he were to follow the example of his great uncle, the Duke of Windsor, formerly Edward VIII, who, when he abdicated the throne, he left the country and he went to live in France. We know full well that that Andrew and Sarah Ferguson both love living in Switzerland, their property in Switzerland. He's also been given use of a palace in the UAE, United Arab Emirates. It's nice for some, isn't it? A full palace at his disposal. So he's got a choice there between a cold climate and a hot climate.
Well, I think he would do very well in the Middle East because he famously doesn't sweat.
Yes, and he's got many business associates over there as well. So
and the women are very alluring.
I just hope that the public do understand that Sandringham is not one of the Crown Estate properties, and so there is no connection to the taxpayer. That's why he's gone there from Windsor, to completely sever any possible suggestion that the public taxpayer are in any way involved with his finances. And so that's a very sensible decision. I just hope the British public do understand that. Now, there's a pressure group called Republic who are agitating and have been agitating for the monarchy to be abolished. They've never gone anywhere in the polls, really, but they're talking about having a private prosecution against Andrew, even though they're not involved. That's what, and then they're crowdfunding for that at the moment. But the fact is, I'm not quite sure how they will have standing in that, and given that they're not party to it. But also, more importantly, the victim in all of this, Virginia Giuffre, she's no longer with us to testify. I think they're making mischief to advance their own agenda, which seems to me a pretty distasteful way to capitalize on someone else's suffering for your own cause. But they, of course, could potentially keep this in the headlines.
So would that suggest that most likely when it comes to any further legal action, the threat of jail or possibly some kind of civil action, that most likely Andrew is now home and hosed?
Well, you have to remember, this has been looked at by the Metropolitan Police. It would have been looked at by the DPP as well, and they didn't think that there were sufficient grounds to proceed with any legal action. Now, this is entirely separate, of course, with what's happening in America and what the American authorities might have to say on all of this. But certainly in terms of the United Kingdom, it doesn't seem as if there is much further for this to go legally.
And Rafe, what about the long-term damage to the monarchy? Do you worry that this could be the beginning of the end?
No, I think the public have been behind the King's decision on all of this. I think they've supported him with this. And you have to understand, the monarchy throughout history has always acted decisively when it's needed to preserve itself. And, you know, I think people need to understand it this way, in essence. Andrew was willing to lay down his life for Queen and country in 1982 during the Falklands War for the good of the nation and the monarchy. And he's been called upon to make a similar sacrifice now. To essentially lay down every aspect of his public life for the good of the monarchy as well in 2025.
Well,
And,
I've been asking our audience today, Rafe, whether what Charles should do now is consider his position and lay the groundwork for his abdication so that William can reinvent and reimagine the monarchy for the 21st century. Here is a voice note from a listener to the show called Elle. Take a listen to this.
Royalist all my life, and my parents were, grandparents. We all loved the Queen. She couldn't put a foot wrong. Absolutely marvellous. We all adored her. She did a fantastic job. Then Charles, he's an adulterer. He changed the law to marry his mistress. I think what he did to Diana was terrible. I think he should move over and let William take charge. I think William will do a good job. People are losing faith in the monarchy, me included. As regards to Andrew, he should have done that sooner, and he needs to strip Harry and Meghan and their children, because what they've said about, they've besmirched the monarchy terribly.
Well, Elle, I'm so glad that you left that voice note, and that's one of the themes of today's Dolan's Dispatch, and I've got thoughts about what should happen to Harry and Meghan right now. Nick in Loughborough, take a listen to this as well, Rafe.
Morning, Mark. It's Nick from Loughborough. I am a staunch royalist, but I fear the demise of the royalty is now inevitable. The Queen, God bless her, was totally apolitical, or if she was political, she never let anybody know which side she batted for. However, the King and even William are now so entangled in the green lunacy, they have themselves nailed their colours to this political green agenda, and in so doing are so out of touch with the people. If they, as politicians, will never be affected financially by the policies that they advocate, therefore they are lost to the people. They are detached from the people. Have a good weekend, Mark.
Brilliant voice note there. Rafe, what do you think about that listener earlier who said that actually Charles should step down and prepare the groundwork for the reign of King William?
No, look, that's not how we do things in this country. We have a process of succession here. Abdication is a complete anathema to our constitution. When we did it in 1936, it was something which was completely alien to our system, and it was for a person who didn't want to be king in those situations. I think we have in the person of the king an extremely accomplished monarch. This is a man who's had the longest apprenticeship in history. Look, we may or may not agree with all of the policies that the king has supported in the past. I think he's shown himself as king to understand the importance of impartiality. But I also think, whether you agree with him or not, this is a man who has undoubtedly dedicated his life to the nation. The causes, be it interfaith dialogue, homelessness, working with disadvantaged communities, re-engaging with the countryside and restoring countryside craftsmanship and so forth. We had a Renaissance man, organic farming, everything. We had a Renaissance man in the King, and I'd much rather have had somebody who was dedicated to improving the life of the British people rather than having had a Playboy prince for the last 30, 40 years, happily waiting to become king whilst in the casinos of Monaco or Monte Carlo. And, you know, the point is, you know, we may or may not agree with all the policies on the environment, for example, but unfortunately to contradict the last caller, Prince William and the King are very much in line with the British public on these issues. May not be necessarily in line with all of your viewers, but the British public as a whole are very supportive of the King and the Prince of Wales on a whole slew of these issues.
Well, listen, Rafe, we always love talking to you. My thanks to broadcaster, historian and fellow at the New Culture Forum, Rafe Hadel-Manku. Over to you. What do you think? Should Charles now consider his position and roll the turf in preparation for the reign of King William? That's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch, which is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. It is 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast. Your weekend starts here. Happy Saturday, one and all. I've got a very, very big 2 hours for you. Andrew loses his title, but has the problem gone away? Was King Charles too slow to act And has the royal family now suffered irreparable damage? What next for this venerated institution? Should Charles think the unthinkable and pave the way for his own abdication and usher in the reign of King William? Also today, 1 in 8 prisoners are now accommodated in prison that are foreign nationals, foreign criminals, each costing you and I £53,000 a year. Would it be cheaper to send them to Eton? More shocking statistics about the level of illegal immigration into the country. Is Britain now at breaking point? And should we scrap foreign aid altogether? As it's revealed, a £52 million road to nowhere built at our expense through the Amazon jungle was done so to tackle climate change. Also breaking this morning, Reform UK now on target to become Britain's next government with potentially 50 or 60 seats by way of a majority. But here's the question. With the Greens coming up on the inside, with Labour and the Lib Dems sharing a very similar policy platform, could the parties of the left work together to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10? There's every assumption that Reform will win the next election, but what about a hellish left-wing rainbow coalition? Be afraid. Be very afraid. And my priority for the next 2 hours is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My number is 03444991000. Book your place on the show. Is Britain now at breaking points? Let me know your thoughts about the state of this country. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave me a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And as always, at this moment in Talk Breakfast, it is time for Dolan's Dispatch. It's not exactly a punishment, is it? Prince Andrew, or should I say Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has rocked the foundations of the British monarchy and has even caused a staunch patriot like myself to question the merits of this institution. So Andrew, a 65-year-old aristocrat whose only great achievement was winning the womb lottery and being the son of Queen Elizabeth II, will now see out his days in plush accommodation in Norfolk's Sandringham estate. He'll have his horses, he'll have his shooting, he'll have his dogs, a roaring fire, he'll have his first glass of port at 5 in the afternoon to fire up his appetite for a 3-course meal provided by uniformed household staff. He'll have his golf nearby. His accommodation, though yet to be specified, will be spacious, 5-star luxury. There'll be room for guests, for dinner parties, for drunken celebrations, and plenty of bedding and clean towels for overnight guests, including any of the remaining women of easy virtue that populate his address book. He remains 8th in line to the throne, which of course makes his likelihood of becoming king minimal. But just think, may God forbid a couple of the wrong helicopters go down and we could have Prime Minister Keir Starmer and King Andrew. I think at that point the whole country would emigrate. Although Andrew has been found guilty of committing no crimes, he has lied about the timeline of his meetings with disgraced billionaire Jeffrey Epstein and visited him in New York following Epstein's conviction for child trafficking. And the author, Andrew Lowney, whose book entitled was a catalyst for his downfall, has told the Mail newspaper today that the Queen's favourite son, Andrew, ordered 40 prostitutes to visit him over the course of a wild weekend in Thailand when he was a trade ambassador. Doesn't sound like there was much trade going on. Now, I should stress that the former Duke denies these allegations, but the whole thing stinks. This is a man who allegedly fraternised with Chinese spies who work against the interests of this country. And then there is the greed, insisting on staying in five-star hotel accommodation rather than in foreign embassies, nightly banquets, lavish decorations for his forever home with Sarah Ferguson, a forever home that barely outlasted the couple's marriage. In some ways, like Harry, Andrew was the spare but acted like he was the king. And now he's just a king disgrace. How the mighty have fallen. He's lost his royal titles, his military honours, the charities have deserted him, the business deals have evaporated overnight, and the son of Queen Elizabeth II is not even a prince now. But it's not exactly a punishment, is it? Unlike the vast majority of people in this country, the viewers and listeners to this show, Talk Breakfast, unlike you, Andrew will have a very comfortable retirement. The finest medical provision, visits from a tweed-suited GP at the drop of a top hat. He'll have someone cooking for him, doing his laundry, darning his socks, ironing his newspaper. He'll have cleaners, chefs, someone to pop to Waitrose for his favourite muffins. Nice work if you can get it. Now, I admire the king, and he hasn't put a foot wrong since taking to the throne. But this scandal threatens to define and derail his reign. It may not be his fault, but it's his problem. And Charles has been too slow to act. Andrew should have been dealt with years ago, with the tipping point surely being the out-of-court settlement with his sex accuser, Virginia Giuffre, to the tune of £12 million. That's when he should have gone. And here's my question to you. In the light of this scandal, should Charles now consider his position? Should he pave the way for his own abdication so that William can take over and re-energise this ailing, scandal-hit institution? As with Prince Harry, the king has been irredeemably slow and weak to deal with his errant younger brother. And so rather than an unfortunate prang, what we've had is a car crash in slow motion, with the publication of Virginia Giuffre's devastating autobiography being a low point for Andrew and the family. Now, that brave woman, whose terrible life certainly wasn't enhanced by her association with Andrew, is now haunting him from the grave. But it's not Andrew that's going to pay the price as he cruises around Norfolk in a leather-upholstered Range Rover with golf clubs in the rear. It is the monarchy itself, which is now fighting for its very survival. The damage has been huge, and Andrew is not the only one. He's not the only problem. Another entitled roiled brat is Prince Harry, whose efforts to hurt the royal family by comparison to Andrew have been more proactive. In his participation in a Netflix documentary in which his wife Meghan mocked Queen Elizabeth, in his authoring of the book Spare, which attacks the royal family and the institution of the monarchy, and the Oprah Winfrey interview in which Harry and his awful wife effectively branded the royal family as a bunch of racists. So now that we're stripping folk of titles, I would quite happily remove Duke of Sussex from Harry, and I would remove his title of Prince as well. You asked for a normal life, Harry. You asked for privacy. Well, your wish is our command. A perennial theme of this show is the erosion of British values, British culture and British tradition, largely as a result of large-scale, unchecked, legal and illegal immigration. The wild Boris wave, with up to 1 million people entering the country in a year, and with illegal boat crossings expected to reach 400,000 in the course of this parliament. It's a national scandal. Mass immigration is the theft of a nation from its own people, which is why, if we are to restore national pride and national identity, we must restore the power and the pride of the British monarchy. We need the monarchy more than ever. The Prince Andrew scandal has made me doubt this institution. But the thought of an elected president, which would be a clapped-out ex-politician or a Z-list celebrity, is keeping me in the royal fold for now. Can you imagine anything worse than President Tony Blair, President David Cameron, President Theresa May, or may God forbid, President Gary Lineker? But the royal family must change. No more indulgent hangers-on, no one exploiting their royal titles for personal gain, for money, for an ego trip, for sex with vulnerable women. It must be a life of service and a life of duty, as demonstrated so well by the late Queen Mother when she navigated the rubble during the Blitz in the Second World War in a photograph that defined the importance and majesty of the royal family. The soft diplomatic power of this institution is colossal, and when King Charles travels the world, every nation on earth rolls out the red carpet. But the focus now must be preparing the groundwork for the reign of King William and Queen Catherine, and a modern, modest monarchy. I believe that those two, William and Catherine, represent the duty, dignity and respect required of this high office. This next generation, William and Catherine, they bring hope, but with it, they must bring change too. Yes, we keep the pomp and ceremony and the gold carriages, of course we do. But alongside that, we need an efficient, lean royal outfit that works smart and sings for its supper, ever mindful of a country on its uppers and a population struggling to make ends meet. Just as Andrew puts his feet up and puts another log on the fire, so the real work begins for the remaining members of Britain's royal family. 03444991000, your reaction to today's Dolan's Dispatch. I'm seriously considering the merit of Charles sacrificing the throne and electing to have his own abdication so that William and Catherine can take to the helm. Let me know your thoughts about that. Mary is in Hemel Hempstead. Good morning, Mary. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark. Tell me, Mark, will you be happy when Andrew's dead?
Well, I don't wish death on anyone, really, Mary, apart from perhaps mass murderers and, horrible dictators.
Tell me, is he the only paedophile or a person who associates with paedophiles? What about all these paedophile gangs that we've got? You're not hearing much about them. Why just Andrew?
Well, you raise a good point. It's very clear that Andrew has been convicted of no crimes whatsoever. It looks like his great crime is poor judgment. But what he's done, Mary, is he's rocked the foundations of the monarchy, and that's why I'm calling him out this morning.
Yes, but a lot of it's down to media frenzy.
Do you think?
I mean, if you think about it, he's kept a low profile for quite a long time. We haven't seen him much at public events. What do people want him to do, die?
Well, many people do feel that he's been guilty of trial by media, but the issue you've got is, he's allegedly fraternised with Chinese spies, Mary, who are working against the interests of this country.
So have a lot of politicians.
Yeah. This poor woman is now haunting him from the grave, Virginia Giuffre, who accuses him of the most vile behaviour. He's a very arrogant and entitled man. He's been consistently greedy for his whole adult life, and he's brought nothing but shame and embarrassment on the royal family.
Look, I'm no supporter of Andrew at all. I've never particularly liked him. I feel that everything is going way over the top. It's almost like a witchcraft, as if he's the only person and as if Jeffrey Epstein is the only paedophile. And there are so many more that we have in our streets that are infecting our country, our politicians. There's so many more that are getting away scot-free. And all we hear about is Andrew. And,
of course, you are right to point out, I was on air when we had the conviction of Hugh Edwards, BBC news presenter, who is a convicted paedophile now, who didn't even go to prison for his crimes. There are lots of dodgy politicians out there. There's the Epstein list. So, you raise a fair point, in sort of defence of Andrew. Mary, what do you think about the King's handling of it then?
Well, I have never been particularly a fan of Charles. I've always found he's a very weak man, even from like before he was king. He sways with the wind to a certain amount. He follows this very strange dogma, the green agenda. He's fanatical about that, and he's been proved wrong several times. I just don't particularly. I'm not drawn to him, and I wouldn't be averse, actually, if he did abdicate, quite frankly, because I don't think he's really brought anything to the monarchy. His behaviour generally, I mean, with regards to Diana, and that way that was all handled. But I just feel that it's going on and on and on. Andrew is in no position to fight back. He's got nothing really to back him. Everybody's deserting him. I don't know him personally, so I don't know if he's arrogant or what. We hear these stories, but again, we're only having to hear what we're being told, but are they all 100% true? But Charles, myself personally, I feel that Charles should have said, my brother is going to do this, 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 but he is my brother, and I'm not going to cut him off, and showed a little bit more honour. And I'm afraid that the way they threw, or mind you, William was just as guilty, the way he threw Lady Hussey to the wolves over something that was totally wrong.
Allegedly racist, which it wasn't at all. She said, what culture do you come from? Because the lady was dressed in very international clothing.
Yeah. And I just feel that Charles has not got the strength, and now he's a sick man. He can play on that and say, well, he's not up to it, and go. But I'm afraid I think he likes the golden life and he wants to hold on to it until the end. He's waited so long.
Mary, I really appreciate your balancing opinion on this issue of Andrew. And Mary there suggesting call off the dogs a little bit with Andrew. It's becoming a witch hunt. Mary, it's all about opinions. Talk Breakfast is a broad church, and I'm very glad that you are participating in this important conversation. Are we being too hard on the guy? Is he a man more sinned against than sinning? Let me know your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Mary, by the way, quite happy to see the back of King Charles and give William a chance. Is now the time for an abdication, for a reinvention and a reimagining of this monarchy? Next up, extraordinary new polls put Reform UK in pole position for power at the next election. But could the parties of the left work together to keep Nigel Farage out at number 10? That's next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
So listen, I'm delighted to say now, reacting to the big stories of the day, I'm joined by the Campaigns Director for Restore Britain, Charlie Downs, and the Senior Fellow for Centre for Social Justice, Matthew Torbett. Gentlemen, top of the morning to you.
Morning.
Very interesting new polling has Reform UK at 32%, the Greens at 17%, the Conservatives at 16%, Labour at 16%, and the Lib Dems 12%. A quick thought, Matthew, on the rise of the Greens. What does this mean for British politics?
I don't know, we're a long way out, and that sounds like I'm doing my Labour Party apparatchik thing, but we are.
Are they, you know, reform to your Tories?
Possibly a little bit, because there's an element of certainly younger people, I would say, that are lacking in hope, and they'll see that either side of a populist spectrum, either in Reform or the Greens, and that's why you're seeing a split. I think my biggest problem with that Polanski, who seems a perfectly nice man to me and whatever, is when you're on the national stage at a leaders' debate in 3 or 4 years' time, you are the boobs guy. And that, you've no getting away from that. No, and I say this with genuine sincerity.
He is good, though. I mean, as a Conservative, I find him quite, you know, he's quite an interesting character.
He carries a message well, yeah.
And he's a walking embodiment of the crisis in British dentistry at the moment.
Now, that's just mean.
It's very harsh. I couldn't care what politicians look like as long as they do a good job. What's worrying is their policy agenda, Charlie, which is chillingly left-wing, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I think the reason that he's doing so well, particularly on social media and particularly among under 50s, if I recall correctly, a poll this week suggested that the Greens were the top party among under 50s, which is crazy. The reason for that is because there's such an appetite for radicalism, and this is also why I think Reform is so popular. Is there's an appetite for radicalism, and the particular flavour of radicalism is not actually that relevant.
All Reform UK are is the Tories with a sort of little shot of espresso added.
Well, that's quite true.
Whereas I think if you look at the Greens, they're further to the left of Corbyn, I would suggest.
Well, the interesting thing about the Greens is that what they are is almost like, you know, the authentic version of what Starmer represents, which is this kind of neoliberal, quite Blairite view of the world, taken to its logical conclusion, which is a very, very radical sort of programme that would completely transform the country.
Well, they want to get rid of landlords, don't they? I mean, how's that going to work?
Yeah, wealth tax, and, you know, I mean, obviously all the green energy stuff as well. I mean, it's an interesting agenda.
But, I mean, it would have you praying for a Labour government, just if you had a choice of, you know, Starmer versus the Greens.
Yeah,
so be careful what you wish for.
But that also depends who you are, because a bit like on the Reform side, I think a lot of it is like rehashing Brexit. It's people with not a lot going, well, it can't get much worse, can it? And that's what I hear from Reform voters. Well, it can't get any worse than what we've got now, so I'm willing to give people a chance. If you're young, semi-privileged perhaps as a traditional Green voter, live at home, frustrated, you want to move out, you want to get on the housing ladder, all this sort of stuff, you're totally fed up, so you're going, Well, it can't get much worse because I'm all right, so I'm going to trust this lot. We need radicalism of ripping up the state or whatever that might look like.
And if I could just add, I think this the narrative that's going around in certainly that area of the left among the likes of Gary Stevenson, Polanski and so on, about the wealth tax, it's a very compelling offer for young people where they say, look, there's an increasing accumulation, concentration of wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer people. These people exercise disproportionate influence over our societies, and they're the reason that you can't afford a house, because they're the people who are driving up the price of assets. Now, I'm not saying that that is necessarily correct, and I'm not saying that a wealth tax is the right way to go. I don't think it is. I think it would be hugely destructive to this country. But the right needs an answer to that, because these are the bread and butter issues that are actually affecting certainly young people at a very basic level.
Well, that's right. What do you think about that?
Well, no, I think actually it sort of shows you a little bit what we've seen across the water in America as well. What Labour and the Conservatives are doing is in a bit of a way what the Democrats had to do against Trump, is you become defenders of an establishment that for many people across this country feels like doesn't work for them, whether that be the price of food, the price of electricity, many things that in some ways the government can't control, but we all look to the government to improve our lives in many ways, and because they haven't, and we have a generation in Gen Z who've grown up, and actually my generation of millennials, you've grown up knowing a lot of misery with regards to being shafted with tuition fee rises, rising rents, particularly if you live in London or the South East. You feel like you've got no chance, and that there is a breaking of that social contract, the unwritten social contract. So is it a surprise that people look to alternatives?
Well, coming up, I've got an extraordinary clip from BBC Question Time with Matthew Goodwin, which absolutely represents the fact that Britain is at breaking point. Plus, here's a question for you. Could Labour, Lib Dems and the Greens form a rainbow coalition to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Is the UK now at breaking point with a collapsing economy, illegal immigration, massive legal net migration, woke policing, crowded prisons, an NHS on its knees? Let's take a listen to this clip from Matthew Goodwin on Question Time this week on the BBC. Now we're having a slight issue. We're having a slight issue there with the clip. We'll fire that up very, very shortly. You do wonder, I mean, is this idea of Britain on breaking point, is that hyperbole? Is that over the top, Charlie?
No, I don't think it is. I think Britain's been at breaking point along a number of metrics for quite a long time, and this government's kind of limping along, maintaining the status quo, which is essentially a kind of managed decline. And this is why, as we were talking about before the break, there is such an appetite among every sector of society, really, for radicalism. Even those who have quite a comfortable life, I think that they're looking at the newspapers, they're looking at what's happening, perhaps not in their town, but in neighbouring towns, towns across the country, when it comes to migration, to crime, to the state of local business, high streets and so on, the cost of living, energy, food, fuel and so on. And they're looking at this, you know, the landscape that lies before them, and they're thinking, this is not a good situation, right?
Are we right to crave radicalism? Is it the answer?
Well, I think there is a time and place for radicalism. It's a style of politics that in certain periods of history is absolutely necessary.
1979?
Well, yes, indeed, right? It's these situations where the ruling class has become so corrupt, so disconnected from the interests of ordinary people, that they require a complete clear-out. And I'm not just talking about the public-facing element of government there. I'm not just talking about the Commons. I'm talking about every level of the government, which seems to exist only to serve itself.
Is the world a better place with Reform as the dominant party of the right in the UK and the Greens the dominant party of the left, Matthew?
I don't know. Have we been served by establishment parties? I think there are elements in history that we have, and I suppose if you'd have asked people in 1979 during the awful of winter of discontent whether we felt at breaking point, we probably did. I suppose maybe I've woke up on the right side of the bed this morning. I feel slightly hopeful in the sense of we've been here before, maybe not quite with immigration levels. There's certainly an element of allowing people in during the British Nationality Act and other Commonwealth Acts, but we've risen from stuff before. Now, whether Keir Starmer is the man to do this and turn it around, I don't know about that. I'll be quite open about that, but I think there can be a way forward. I think there's an element of radicalism. And listen, radicalism doesn't mean left-wing. I try and say this to Labour people who get terrified of like another Corbyn type. I think, and it won't be very popular on this station, Tony Blair in ways was radical for Labour. The fact that national minimum wage at the time was radical. Sure start and giving people the opportunity to put their kids in childcare was radical.
Independence of the Bank of England?
Well, it's certainly radical. Whether, I think there was.
It was radical at the time. I mean, politicians used to manipulate interest rates just before elections in order to look more popular. Well, listen, now we've got that clip. So this is the political broadcaster and academic Matthew Goodwin on Question Time this week on the BBC.
A group of people that really haven't been mentioned so far, which is the British people. When did it become acceptable to impose an extreme policy of open borders, unvetted illegal migrants coming into the country, nearly 200,000. On the current trends, by the next general election, on the current trends, we will have another 181,000 illegal migrants coming into this country over the next few years. You say they don't commit crime, violence, etc. What do you say to the family of Rhiannon White, the young mother who was murdered by a man from Sudan? What do you say to the family of the 8-year-old in Lambeth who was raped by an asylum seeker? Or the 12-year-old in Nuneaton who was raped by an asylum seeker? Or the 10-year-old in Stockport? But this is the narrative that we have, and if we talk about it, we're far right. If we talk about it, we're racist. And by the way, Lisa, your leader, Keir Starmer, just stood at Labour Party conference and said, if you are voting for the Reform Party, if you want to change this country, you're far right, you're Nazi, you're fascist. No, that's what he said.
Sorry, well, OK, well, you've...
Matthew, has Matthew Goodwin got a point there that the left have abandoned the British people?
If you would describe this government as the left, maybe. I wouldn't, actually. I wouldn't call them traditionally left-wing. I think it is left-wing to put British people first. I think I'm absolutely all for helping people in times of need, but ultimately charity starts at home, as they say, and I have no issue with that whatsoever.
That would get you cancelled at Labour Party conference making a remark like that.
That's already happened, so it doesn't really matter, Mark.
I know, it's a good point. They didn't let you go.
Yes, quite. No.
But that would be considered a right-wing position, wouldn't it? What you've just said.
Well,
there.
that's maybe because the academic term of the Overton window is broken and silly. I think you can hold more than one thing as a priority than others. What I don't like, and I think it was mentioned on Question Time that evening, was that this sort of crime shouldn't happen. Well, no sort of crime should happen. We're not saying that just because you've got the right paperwork that's okay if you maybe go and commit crime, or maybe because you're from here certain crimes happen. I think there are different priorities we can hold. Should we be concerned that people are coming in and we don't know who they are? Yes, of course. I've always been a proponent of offshore processing and trying to identify if there are issues. People may always hide those, or you don't know if somebody's ever committed a crime before. If they haven't, if they will in the future. But you've got a better idea if somebody is fleeing and is a true asylum seeker rather than chucking their passport in the channel and we don't know where they're from. But at the same time, it worries me that 7 out of 10 women who are raped, sexually assaulted, killed, I think your woman is killed every 3 days in this country, it's normally by somebody known to them, or somebody that's a family member, a friend, or whatever else. So therefore, what are we doing about that? And I think you can hold more than two thoughts at once, particularly around the idea of prevention. You know, why are men going out and doing this?
How does a generous asylum system and how do the illegal boat crossings help the poor of this country?
Well, no, they don't. That's silly.
Do they harm the poor of this country?
I think in the sense of that there is obviously a grey market, as they call it, for gig economy workers, and I think I'd be angry at both. Are you angry at the potential pretend asylum seeker who isn't allowed to work, therefore is undercutting you, Joe Bloggs, for wages? Or we can also be angry at the boss who's willing to do that. And actually, I think we should be leveraging massive fines on people like Deliveroo, Uber Eats and other brands are available, because many of us have warned about this for 2 years, that you can flog those IDs on places like Facebook Marketplace or online and people will buy them out of desperation. So I suppose you either go, do we allow people to work if they've been here for 12 months waiting for a decision because we have an asylum system that doesn't work and isn't fit for purpose? Do we need to look at things like the 51 Convention? What is an asylum seeker anymore? We have war all over this world now in comparison to 1940. So what is an asylum seeker? There's lots of questions that are big and need to be answered. Very complicated to sort as well, though.
But if you look at two flagship policies that the left mainly trumpet and support, Charlie, you've got net zero and you've got open borders, or a very generous asylum system, and a very lax attitude to the boat crossings.
And legal immigration.
And legal immigration. And all of those things are really bad for poor people.
Well, this is the point, right? The Labour Party, I agree with you that they're not exactly left-wing in the traditional sense. They're definitely not Marxist or socialist, right?
Yeah.
The constituency that the Labour Party serves is not the working class, it is the managerial class. These are people who work in the civil service, in university administration, in corporate HR and so on.
Is it the people that wear a lanyard even when they're not in the office?
That's right, the lanyard class. That's perhaps a better
Just the bed-wearing one, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
when they're in
Indeed.
Pret-a-Manger.
And so that is the class that the Labour Party is the political wing of, right? And those policies that you have just talked about, whether it's net zero, legal and illegal immigration, or any other kind of globalist policy, essentially, benefits them because it expands their power. It makes them more necessary because mass and scale, a society of mass and scale, like our own, requires managerial power. And so it's in their interest to...
And it makes them look like nice people. It allows them to virtue signal with their luxury beliefs.
That's the window dressing for sure. But you know, if it's, you know, you hear our leaders talk all the time about growth. You know, growth is always the most important thing, and wealth, the generation of wealth, is absolutely important. But you listen to how our leaders talk about the economy. It's just GDP. It's just the kind of, you know, the net amount of money that is being, you know, sort of, you know, the size of the economy itself that's important, and not the actual GDP per capita, not the well-being of ordinary people on a day-to-day basis. And that's because their view of the country is not as a nation, as a homeland, but as an economic zone that they have to optimise for profit.
Yes. Forgetting that growth is finite as well, and the idea that we can just grow forever and we're just going to continue along this path. I do wonder, though, with regards to the managerial class, I think that's an argument that there's worth giving some thought to. I wonder whether that's actually because we've got better since probably the 1960s on social mobility, and the fact that the class system is very fluid now. You could have had somewhat of a working class underclass, probably quite wealthy, and then the real elites way back when, whereas now we almost have a bloated middle class that doesn't feel very middle class. So therefore both, I would say, traditional parties, the two-party system, pitches constantly to the middle classes because they tend to go out and vote. They've got that little bit of money. It's maybe easy to make their lives a little bit better. And this is why we've ended up where we are, because we've got poor people pitting on either side, left or right, going, I've had enough. Nobody's servicing my request.
Well, I've got to say, I think this does actually call into question the value of the concept of social mobility, right? And I sound like a proper Tory saying that, and I'm not a Tory, right? But
a workhouse down the road, apparently.
But honestly, historically, this country and all nations around the world have felt there's been a sense of cohesion and belonging and identity because everybody had a place. Everybody had a place where they belong. And today, this on the altar of social mobility, young people certainly go through the education system. They're told they have to go to university if they want to have any prospects in life. They do that, and then there's rarely actually a job for them that uses their degree. And actually, they end up going into whether it is some office job that they don't feel that passionate about, and that they're just working to pay the bills, for which they get excessively taxed at the end of the day. What has social mobility, this high-minded idea, actually delivered for people? Well, it's been deindustrialisation, for one thing. It's been the transformation of our economy into one based on services, which I think has completely sucked the soul out of this nation. It's meant that work has no dignity anymore, and therefore people feel this kind of driftlessness.
Yeah, that is a worry, isn't it? And what about the prospects for the next election? Because Reform is storming ahead now on 32% of the vote. I think that will continue, and I think that there are shy Reform voters out there that aren't represented in those polls, even though the pollsters say that they do hedge for that, but I'm not so sure. That said, the Greens, Labour and Lib Dems, Matthew, if they're staring down the bullet at the barrel of defeat at the next election, could they work together to form some kind of rainbow coalition to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10?
They could. I think Labour and Lib Dems would be more likely. I think the real interesting point is what Zach Polanski does if they gain 5 seats, 10 seats, whatever. It might be enough to get you over the line.
Could he do a Nick Clegg, and join a coalition?
I don't know, because you'd have to sell out a little bit in his book, and this is the problem on the left with things like moral purity. You will never quite hit somebody's height, and I hate that element of the left. And I don't know, in an academic way, that many of these left-wing academics see it as actually, if we let Nigel in, it'll benefit our cause more, because when it all blows up in his face, people will turn to the left, and people like us. And will he do that? The thing I would say is, look, if you lock Nigel Farage out of number 10, he's done. That man is bored already. He's not going to wait another 5 years, or maybe it'll be 2 years if the Rainbow Coalition doesn't last. I do not see him sticking around if he doesn't win at the next general election. I think he'll go out, I've tried my best. And actually, it will benefit his sort of memorial, in a way, of going, I was the best Prime Minister we never had.
But by that point, the Reform would be a very established political force, cemented as the party of the right in this country, with plenty of talent alongside Nigel, like Richard Tice and Zia Youssef and others.
It is certainly an interesting one. I mean, I worry that Reform are getting a little bit complacent because of their, their domination of the polls at the moment. And I was listening to Peter Hitchens yesterday, who said that he thinks that Farage, now that he's staring at the prospect of actual power, is actually possibly feeling a little bit scared. Now, I don't know Farage. I've met him a couple of times. I don't know whether that's the case. I can believe that, though. And I think that the style of politics that Reform represents is certainly appealing at one level, but I don't know whether they recognise the gravity of the situation that this country is in. I see no evidence from them that they're working seriously on policy, on building a kind of, an elite vanguard that can save the country and take on the civil service. In a lot of ways, the very fact that Reform and Farage are being put before the electorate suggests a certain degree of acceptance by the establishment, in my view. Because if they were a genuinely radical offering, same goes for Polanski, by the way, any genuinely radical offering is not given the time of day by the mainstream media.
Well, Farage has said he'll stop the boats within 2 weeks of entering office.
I think that's entirely possible.
He wouldn't
but
that's radical, isn't it?
It is radical. But stopping the boat, I mean, everybody knows that stopping the boats is a pretty straightforward thing. I mean, we published a policy paper a couple of weeks ago at Restore Britain titled Mass Deportations, Legitimacy, Legality and Logistics. And I'd encourage all viewers to go and check that out, because it's a comprehensive plan on how to stop the boats and also how to remove all of those living in Britain illegally, of whom there are about 2 million. That's the easy part. The hard part, as I've said already on the show today, Mark, is legal migration and the comprehensive transformation of our legal and political infrastructure in this country that's going to require to resolve and reverse that particular axis of chaos that's being inflicted on our country is going to be far more complicated. And the legal challenges and all the rest of it is going to be so difficult. And I don't know whether any party has the stones to actually deal with that head on.
OK, well, listen, we'll come back to that very, very shortly. Also, still to come, the Royal British Legion volunteers for this great cause have been abused whilst putting up Remembrance Day poppies. We'll discuss that scandal and much more next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Royal British Legion volunteers were abused whilst they put up Remembrance Day poppies in a Welsh town near Cardiff. This is a bit of a scandal, Charlie, isn't it? And I just wonder whether, younger generations don't appreciate the sacrifices that were made in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Look, as people who value free speech, right, this is an expression of free speech on the part of these people. I don't know exactly what they said. In the story I read that they were swearing and abusing these people, which is absolutely not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that what the poppy and indeed the flags represent is the very best of this nation. And it's that those people are taking aim at. It's that those people take issue with.
Yeah, have we lost touch with that, the importance of the poppy and remembering the war dead?
I don't know about the importance of the poppy. I think definitely the longer time goes on and there's nobody left around to talk about those times, it is where it becomes concerning, and actually where history shows war happens because people don't recognise how awful it was. Even growing up, I remember my great-grandma lived through the war, etc., like lots of people, and she was asked to write a letter for a school project that we were doing, and I remember the final line was very chilling of hers, because she said, never let anybody tell you that war is great or glamorous, it is hell. And these are people that lived through it. The thing that confuses me in freedom of speech, all the rest of it, is even in my most radical days at university, you know, I'd make a statement by wearing a white poppy and go, this is about all people and about peace and whatever else. I've never quite thought, oh, I'm going to go and abuse people, you know, again, we don't know what they said, but that doesn't make sense to me. This is a political symbol, fine, but 99% of people in the country agree that we should remember the sacrifices made by mostly working-class men in those trenches and women.
Of course, so the white poppy is the opposite. It's a pacifist symbol, and I'm a libertarian, Charlie, so, you know, each to their own, wear the white poppy if you want. But allow me to judge you as a despicable human being whose freedom is only as a result of the sacrifices of the war dead. And I'm afraid it's the story of history, and it will be the story of the future, which is that you need strong men to step up and fight.
Well, quite.
And yet these idiots waving the white flag are, for me, beyond the pale.
Well, this is the thing. The principles that the poppy and indeed the Union flag represent are not what our leaders say they represent. It's not British values as, you know, enshrined in law in 2015 by Michael Gove, like democracy and tolerance and all this nonsense. It is the deep history of this country and the principles upon which it was built, which are first and foremost Christian principles, in my view, and it's things like standards, discipline, and you know, and propriety. These are real. If we want to talk about British values, those are true British values, not, you know, democracy and tolerance and diversity and all this nonsense, which is very modern, very fashionable.
They're nice.
Well, how are they working out for us?
Democracy? I don't know. We've got a right shambles going on at the minute.
Exactly, right? So it's those principles that are so completely against the left-wing worldview, because the left-wing worldview is about equality, and which in reality means just reducing everybody down to a kind of bottom level, and hatred, ultimately, of white people, of Western culture, of Western civilization, and that, I think, is what these people are truly taking issue with.
Well, I think if we were involved in a conflict now, who would fight? Many of our citizens would not. You've got communities living a parallel existence in London and elsewhere who would not take up arms to defend this country, possibly even rather support the enemy. And then the other issue is, if you were going to fight, what would you be fighting for?
Well, that's the big question when you see these sort of vox pops that people do. Many young people, certainly, as we've discussed at the top of the show, they go, what am I fighting for? Am I proud to live here? Well, it's rubbish living here. And it's particularly the leaders that you're fighting for. Nobody's going to want to go out and fight for.
Well, would you take up arms to protect this country for what it represents now,
It's funny you should ask. I wrote a piece on this in the Mail earlier this year about how I, as a you know, I think deeply patriotic person, I love England, I love Britain, I love our history and everything we represent. I think we've been the protagonists of history, defenders of truth and reason and faith. But Britain in its current form, well, exactly that question. What would you be fighting for? Because you wouldn't be fighting for Britain, you'd be fighting for Britain's elites, Britain's ruling class. And it's that ruling class that has completely sold out my generation, certainly, out both of ours, I would say. And the principles that govern their decision-making do not serve the interests of ordinary people in this country. They're so totally given to this ideology of kind of internationalism, human rights, liberalism, which on paper sounds very nice, very fluffy and all the rest of it, but when it interfaces with reality, destroys nations.
Well, that's right. And if you've got effective open borders, which we do, then you lose a sense of national pride and purpose, and you lose a reason to fight for this country.
And the article that I wrote was in the context of the idea of British boots on the ground in Ukraine. And what I said was, well, you know, people talk since the beginning of the Ukraine war about how this is a fight for the Western liberal world order. And I look at that and I think, the liberal world order has completely, you know, it's certainly not been the great utopian project that we were sold in the aftermath of the Second World War.
It's a living hell.
It is. It's totally failed. And so why would I, as a young Englishman, staring down the barrel of, you know, demographic replacement in my own homeland and inability to purchase and own my own house, you know, everything from, again, food, fuel, everything being so expensive, and any sense of national identity not just being deconstructed but actively demonised by every mouthpiece of the regime, whether it's the state itself, the universities, the media, the entertainment industry, and so on. Why would I want to fight for the liberal world order that has delivered that?
Which, by the way, if you have, I mean, the armed forces is all predominantly populated by brave white men and women. But they're the bad people in society. But when the so-and-so hits the fan, they'll be called upon. And why should they? More fool them, I think.
Well, there's a funny joke that goes around online, which is as soon as you see military ads including all white people, get ready for war.
Oh, my goodness. Matthew, the Ukrainians could teach us a thing or two about nationhood, couldn't they?
Yes, I don't think it's necessarily perfect there, by the way. I think they've got their own issues politically and society when we talk about their society.
But the war effort is admirable, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, but I think, again, if you were asking the question, would you go out and fight for this country, I think it depends. If you were going to send people to Afghanistan for a fake war, well, no. Now, I do think there is a place, not for war, I hate the idea of war, but when, in the case of Adolf Hitler, if Vladimir Putin was to take on that role, begins to take over the Balkans and then Europe, and then we're facing them down a barrel, you have no choice but to fight, unfortunately. Whether we agree on the current state of the country or not, it's that or be taken.
But once again, in the case of Ukraine, you know, this idea of kind of, you know, the patriotism and nationalism of the Ukrainian people, in my view, it's a confected nationalism, a product of the United States first and foremost, because what we're dealing with here is basically a NATO puppet state that exists to keep Vladimir Putin at bay and to sort of preserve the United States' role as the global hegemon, which, once again, you know, for all the talk of the special relationship, has it been good for Britain to be the kind of lapdog of the United States for the last 80 years?
I don't even know if we're the lapdog. I think we're the tail on the dog. Yeah. No, we're not even that.
Chief enforcer in Europe, actually, possibly. But no, the way in which the United Kingdom has been so beholden to the United States on all things from culture to foreign policy, especially, has absolutely not been in our interest. And when you know, if the shoe was on the other foot, I don't think, you know, they certainly wouldn't. Look, I don't know. Maybe they would, but I just don't think that they, if push came to shove, they wouldn't have our back.
Oh, not in this current climate. I think Donald Trump has unfortunately shown he's not currently a reliable ally of the United Kingdom, if, depending on what the situation was. In the future, who knows what that'll look like. But no, it's fraying at the edges, I would say, certainly this idea of even things like NATO and whatever. I think they are the placeholder at the top.
Well, gents, enjoyed your company. The clock's against us. My thanks to Matthew Torbett and Charlie Downs. Come back and see me again soon. Next up, should King Charles abdicate to save the monarchy?
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning to you. It is 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast. Your weekend starts here. A big hour to come. Andrew loses his title, but has the problem gone away? Was King Charles too slow to act? And has the royal family now suffered irreparable damage? What next for this venerated institution? Should Charles think the unthinkable and pave the way for his abdication and usher in the reign of King William in an effort to modernise, refresh and reinvigorate our monarchy? Also, almost 1 in 8 prisoners are now foreign nationals, the accommodation of which for each individual is £53,000 a year. Literally, it would be cheaper to send them to Eton. Also, more shocking statistics about the levels of illegal immigration into the country. Is Britain now at breaking point? And how about this? Should foreign aid be scrapped, as it's revealed a £52 million road to nowhere was built in the Amazon jungle, all off the back of your hard-earned cash? Make it make sense. And what about the idea of Charles abdicating? Should he step down? Should he pave the way for the reign of King William? Let me know your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. Send the word talk to 87222. Give us a voice note as well. My priority for the next hour is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. You can hear us on DAB+, in-app, online, or you can watch the show. Just head to YouTube and search Talk. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And if you're just joining us, lovely to have your company. We'll kick off with today's front pages. And the Daily Express: Army is not safe for young women. This is a devastating story. The distraught mother of tragic gunner Jaisley Beck claims the army is no longer safe for young women after the soldier who sexually assaulted her daughter was jailed for just 12 weeks. The Sun newspaper, Britain's best-selling national: we've got 3 months to quit the lodge. We can't bear him either. Humiliated Andrew Windsor has 3 months to clear all of his teddy bears and get out of the Royal Lodge. The former prince and his collection of 72 cuddly toys must quit the 30-room Windsor mansion by the end of January by orders of his brother, the King. Well, he loves his bears. Let me tell you that Andrew is well and truly stuffed. We've also got the Eye Weekend. Andrew to get £500,000 payout for Royal Lodge, but now faces a huge repair bill. We've got the Daily Mirror: downfall of a prince. King listened to the people. Heckler was final straw as political pressure grew. The Guardian newspaper now: Andrew to receive six-figure sum and a stipend from the King. As I mentioned in today's Dolan's Dispatch, not exactly a punishment, is it? Daily Star: truck off. Need a man and a van, Andy. Rather ingeniously, the Daily Star have parked up a massive removals van outside Windsor Castle. The Times: Andrew quit fight after losing loyalty of ex-wife. There you go. It would appear that Sarah Ferguson has parted company with Andrew at this stage, placing more pressure on him and leaving him very isolated. The Daily Mail: William and Kate pushed for Andrew to be ousted. Richard Kay asks, how will Andrew cope with bleak reality of his new life in exile? Robert Hardman: this is royal cancellation. He's reduced to a traitor. And Rebecca English: why Fergie's daughters are now more upset with her. And last but not least, Daily Telegraph: MPs push to stop Andrew succession. Well, I'm delighted to say, reacting to the big stories of the day is the Whitehall correspondent for the Sun newspaper, Sophia Slay. Hello, Sophia.
Morning.
Great to have you in the studio. And my God, you've got some great political stories in today's Sun newspaper, including a very potent headline: Benefits Bill can't go on, but it will. Britain lives, doesn't it, Sophia, beyond its means, but the government did not get the memo.
Unfortunately, you're right. The welfare bill is humongous. I think including pensions, it's about 300 billion. Personal independent payments is the big problem as well. There's a sense of unfairness that surrounds that. So Keir Starmer knows and has said, you know, it's unsustainable. This bill is unsustainable. But you know, earlier this year in the summer, what happened? He was forced into a U-turn by his backbenchers.
For quite modest cuts to disability benefits.
It was about 5 billion, I think, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah.
He was forced into a U-turn over that. There's this new review into these PIP payments. They're the quite controversial element to it all. We found out now that that review into these PIP payments is not going to look at cutting it back, basically. So, you know, everyone's a bit worried, well, where are you going to find these savings? Where are you going to get these cuts from? They know this needs to happen, but they're beholden to their backbenchers. I do think Rachel Reeves will try and come back at the budget to find cuts elsewhere in welfare, but I really think they've got their work seriously cut out for them. And you know, the backbenchers won over Keir in the summer. They've got the upper hand over him. It's going to be really hard for him to push through any other changes.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think the rabbit in the hat for Sir Keir Starmer would be to tear up the ECHR, which I know is probably unthinkable for a former human rights lawyer, but this is an ambitious guy who wants to remain in number 10. If he could unilaterally stop the boats, I think it would be his Falklands Island moment, and I think it would, you know, preserve his premiership for certainly a couple more years. But his party, as you said, whatever he wants to do, his party won't let him. This is a prime minister, this is a guy, he does not govern as someone with a huge majority, does he?
No, which is, it's funny actually. I remember when Boris won that big majority, what seemed like a big majority then, and I remember saying to someone, oh, you know, I don't know what stable government's like. I've lived through the Brexit years and all that kind of chaos. It's going to be a bit boring with a majority government in charge. And I remember one of my colleagues at the time said, Sphere, just you wait. When you've got such a big majority, it becomes impossible to govern your backbenchers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's the opposite to what I thought was going to happen, and that's what we're seeing again. You know, Boris had those problems with his backbenchers. I mean, the Tories were so unruly, you'll remember, but I think now Keir's got that exact same problem, where he's actually got quite powerful backbenchers now, and they've won over the government, and they know they can win, so they're going to, two-child benefit cap is something that they're trying to get lifted and things like that.
Well,
so
that's interesting, because I suppose the instinct for self-preservation kicks in for the governing party when there's a smaller majority, because you can't just have every bill not passing.
Yeah, that might be the psychology behind it.
You enter the sort of vote of no confidence territory, and then turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
How interesting. So does that tell us that what is the perfect size of majority then, do you think? 50 or something?
I think it would be easier in a strange way if your backbenchers weren't so powerful. And there's also, I actually think it's a bit problematic when it comes to things like scrutiny. You know, you go through all the committees in Parliament, they're all sort of, you know, dominated by Labour MPs, and it is quite hard to sort of hold to account your own party.
Marking their own homework.
Exactly,
Too
exactly
right.
that.
Can you tell me about a delay in migrants being sent to military bases? What's going on there?
Yeah, there's a lot of frustration around this. So obviously, as you will know and all your viewers will know, we've got quite a serious asylum migrant crisis. There's a real sense of unfairness and anger and frustration about the use of hotels. You know, why are people being put up in luxury hotels? It's not fair. It's not fair on the British taxpayer. And this story by my colleague Martina is sort of outlining, it reminds me a little bit of, you know, that meme with the Spider-Men sort of pointing at each other, sort of, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. It reminds me of that. You've obviously got sort of the Home Office blaming the MOD, the Ministry of Defence, for not getting on with the job and putting asylum seekers up on MOD sites. So here you've got the Home Office being accused of dragging its feet, and defence sources sort of saying, oh, well, we're getting on with the job. I think the thing that sort of stood out to me in this story was it says officials say due diligence must be carried out before asylum seekers can be moved to these military sites. And I think just the frustration, the bureaucracy, it's really easy now. It seems much easier to get in a boat, cross the channel and get here than it is just to move some asylum seekers out of a hotel into a military base. Why is it so difficult?
You raise a really good point. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Normally it's the domain of the right who are complaining about the blob. But actually this is a Labour government that are struggling with the creaking bureaucracy of this country.
Very much so. And you speak to senior people in the Labour government and they are so frustrated with the pace at which it's moving. Very, very frustrated. The irony is kind of when the Tories were in power and wanting to move asylum seekers into military bases and things like that, the uproar from the opposition, the then, Labour, but front bench, the fury over all this kind of stuff you got, which is now you find Labour in government, they're going through the same motions that the Tories went through in government and having the same problems.
Did I see whispers this week that there are some in Labour circles who are slightly regretting ditching the Rwanda plan?
Yep, there has, and that you will hear that quietly said. It's the realities of government. It's the reality of being in the hot seat and having to govern and realising actually there's not a silver bullet to this crisis. It's really hard work and the bureaucracy is just crazy.
And what's noticeably lacking is a deterrent. And that's what, for all its sins and imperfections, that's what Rwanda was.
Yeah, and a one in, one out was supposed to be their version of a deterrent, but I'm not sure that's working when you've got someone in and out again, coming back, and we're now unable to get him out again. So I can't see that's going to work at all.
No, it's a catastrophe and it's a tragic comedy. And look, we'll come back to that story in just a moment. Can I also ask you about a prisoner freed early, and the circumstances is a real concern for public safety. What's the story here?
So basically, this is one by my colleague Julia. A prisoner released early by Labour under its sort of early release scheme, which is basically to free up jail space, has been charged with murder. So obviously I have to be very careful how I talk about that. But what I think the importance is here, it's optics. I may have used that word with you earlier, but it's how it looks. This scheme was never going to be popular. I do understand the frustration, and the danger and the fear. When Labour came into power, they said, "Oh my God, our prisons are creaking. They are at crisis point. We are in a really bad way. We don't want to, but we're going to have to let people out early." So that's what they did. But this was always going to be an absolute PR nightmare. This sort of thing was always going to come up. These kind of stories were always going to come up. And this isn't the first one of its kind. And it just looks awful. And if there's one thing that sort of Brits can all agree on, and your viewers will, I'm sure, will agree on, is we want to see prisoners behind bars. We don't want them seeing their sentences cut short.
Yes, I mean, how hard can it be? Stay with us, Sophia, because I'd love to get a positive story now from your excellent colleague, Rob Maul, who's the Associate Sports Features Editor at The Sun newspaper. And Rob, welcome to Talk Breakfast. Former England rugby captain Lewis Moody revealed recently that he's suffering from motor neurone disease, which is obviously an awful condition. He's staying very positive. He's such a brave man. He's such a hero all over again. And a very special gesture today. Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis is 47 years old. He's a father of 2 boys. And he got the announcement in September that he's got motor neuron disease. This is what Doddy Weir and Rob Burrow, the late Rob Burrow and late Doddy Weir had. And he's taken it in as good grace as he can. It's clearly very devastating, life-changing for him. And when he announced this situation, this diagnosis, the rugby community got fully behind him. He went to Leicester Tigers, his former club, got a tremendous reception. And today, for England-Australia at 3:10 at Twickenham, he's going to give the match ball ahead of that match to the 2 opposing captains. And you can imagine, up to 80,000 people at Twickenham. It's going to be a tremendous reception for someone who appeared many times for his country with distinction and was part of that World Cup winning squad in 2003, played a pivotal role as a substitute in that final win over Australia. So, yeah, I spoke to Ben Kay, one of his teammates, and he doesn't think there'll be a dry eye in the house, and I don't tend to disagree.
No, he's an absolute legend. Rob, lovely to have you on the show. Always enjoy the Sun's sports coverage. Rob Wall is the Associate Sports Features Editor at The Sun newspaper. Make sure and get your hands on a copy, or indeed head to the website, sun.co.uk. thesun.co.uk. Now, before I let you go, Sophia, what about Rachel Reeves from Accounts? Does she owe Andrew Mountbatten Windsor a beer?
He's certainly knocked her off the front pages. I think PR-wise...
Do you mind not saying he knocked her off, because that could be badly misconstrued? But I take your point.
He certainly removed her from the front pages.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about a good week to very bad news.
Gosh.
Because this story about the renting out their house without the licence, it's not crime of the century, is it? It's not the Watergate scandal. But like you said earlier, the optics aren't great.
Yeah, well, I try and be a bit forgiving with politicians, which is I probably shouldn't be. I was chatting to someone last night, and I said, "Oh, I can see why she got herself in this pickle." And the person I was talking to said, "Sophia, forget that. She's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. She's got no excuse. They're the lawmakers. When they're levelling things on the public, levelling taxes on the public, levelling laws on the public, you can't get things wrong." And they also said to me something that I thought was quite interesting, which feeds into the optics, is, remember the Partygate scandals and things like this? Labour would call for anyone's head if they did the slightest thing wrong. If anyone put a toe out of line, Labour was calling for their head on a stick. And I think they kind of made their own bed in a way by picking at everything, and now they're in government, and actually, yeah, they're human too, and they make mistakes too. It's quite easy to kind of point the hypocrisy finger at them sometimes.
Well, definitely, and you obviously had the housing story in relation to Angela Rayner, so a narrative starts to emerge. And then, of course, prior to that, we had the freebie scandal that Rachel Reeves was caught up in. She had money given to her for, expensive outfits and free tickets to things. And then, of course, let's not forget her very fabricated CV as well. So the issue that she's got is that she's got previous on this.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to make. It is cutting through with the public, I think, is interesting as well. And it's not Joe Blogg's behaviour, I think, is the thing that's actually cutting through. I live in one home and only have one home. She's got this home in South London. I assume she has a property in Leeds for her constituency purposes. She's got her family home that she's renting out. She's living in Downing Street. And it's that kind of, for the public, oh, well, I've got into Downing Street. What am I going to do? I'm going to make a quick dime. I'm going to put my house quickly on the letting market and get some money while I'm, in a taxpayer-funded house in Downing Street. And I understand, don't get me wrong, the stresses of living in Downing Street, working in Downing Street, the pressures of being a chancellor. But that's not, the rest of us don't live like that. The rest of us don't have that luxury of being able to put our homes on the market, on the lettings market and things like that. And I think that actually cuts through, because most of us don't live like that.
It's a really good point. I mean, she's coining the best part of £35,000 a year renting this house out, and yet her accommodation is free. You could almost imagine a more egalitarian solution would be for, the cost of her accommodation in Downing Street to be balanced out by her rental income. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just so that it, because you shouldn't go beyond your salary, should it? The financial gain from being in office.
Yeah, and if this was the Tories, they would be pointing the finger saying, big Tory fat cat. They'd be doing that if they were in opposition, and this was the Tory government in their situation.
Listen, you've got some great stories in today's paper. Sophia Slay is the Whitehall correspondent for The Sun newspaper, always with the inside story on matters political. Lovely to see you, and I hope to catch up again soon. Next up, is King Charles now facing a serious challenge to the future of the monarchy? Should he abdicate to save the whole project? We'll discuss that next. Live in the studio, Kinsey Schofield, the US Queen of Royal Coverage. We'll do that next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
An interesting text from Dan in Kent. Mark, socialism is good for a country when recovering from a war, but it becomes mundane without aspiration. Capitalism is a rodeo horse of excitement, but very painful when you lose control. The thing is, Mark, this is the reason why we have socialism today, because the government have treated COVID as a war. Interesting. A lot going on in that text message. Simon says the Chancellor not having a licence to rent out a house is a big deal when she knew about it. The reason is landlords are getting heavily fined when they miss out and they can't make excuses. So it is a big deal. Simon, you're right. She also misled the Prime Minister. How about getting a few volunteers to take a boat and go to France without passports and claim asylum? Let's see what France does. And how about this from Steve? Mark, One In, One Out is a tragic comedy and no one is laughing. I'll get some more of your messages shortly. Someone that's not laughing is King Charles, who's still feeling the heat following the relinquishing of the titles of Prince Andrew. He's now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's lost his titles, but has the problem gone away? Let's get the views of the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, live in the studio. Kinsey, this is your last hurrah in the UK before you head back to America.
It is, but I have been monitoring the way that the US is covering this story, and I thought that the New York Times, their headline was interesting. It was something along the lines of, will the unraveling of Prince Andrew be the making of King Charles? The idea that we're seeing backbone, we're seeing strength and leadership from the king. I thought that that was kind of interesting. And then when it came to the Wall Street Journal, their take was that the king was cleaning things up for Prince William. You know, the king inherited this problem from Queen Elizabeth, and was this the king's way of just making sure that this isn't an issue that Prince William has to deal with going further?
Yes. The question now is for the king. Do you feel that it's problem solved? Has he sufficiently cleaned house now so that he can actually recalibrate his reign and get on with being king?
Ask me once he's actually in Sandringham and we see what the behavior is. Is he going to quietly disappear and stay, you know, is he going to stay home? Is he going to stay out of the public eye? Are we going to be hearing stories around town about his behavior? Is he rude? Because this is not just a stripping of titles. It's really an adjusting to a completely different lifestyle. He's not going to have the staff he once had. We, according to Richard Kay in the Daily Mail, behind the scenes, they were still referring to him as HRH in Royal Lodge, his employees. Will that no longer take place now that he's just Andrew Mountbatten Windsor privately at Sandringham? So I think that there are a lot of questions still up in the air. And to be fair, I see and I hear the people that want a harsher response and want him to be held accountable criminally, but he has never been convicted of anything. So we, you know, if that process comes to fruition, okay, but the Met Police have investigated this to some extent, and they could not find enough evidence to pursue it.
Definitely. I mean, Virginia Giuffre's family, his late sex accuser's family, are very happy that he's no longer a prince. They feel vindicated. This poor woman who's no longer with us is haunting Andrew from the grave. And what they want Andrew to do now is to do the right thing, head to America and offer evidence, any information about the activities of Epstein. Do you see that happening?
We'll talk to the author Barry Levine, who wrote The Spider, about Jeffrey Epstein, and he will tell you he really feels like Andrew has avoided the United States since this whole story exploded, because he's afraid of somebody grabbing him at the airport and forcing that meeting. You know, there being some sort of intervention with him where he might actually face some consequences in the States. He says that is why you never will see Prince Andrew step foot in the United States ever again, out of fear that something could come to fruition there. So do I think he should? I just don't think it's even worth the conversation, because I don't think he ever will. I think he's probably been advised to avoid the United States going forward. Fergie, on the other hand, I think will hop right on over to the United States too. You know, in LA, in New York, it's okay to be infamous. In fact, we celebrate it. You know, a little bit of trouble goes a long way when it comes to reality television, when it comes to the morning show hits. Fergie's always leaned into that. So I can see her trying to monetize this and trying to rebrand herself over there. The sympathetic, oh, I got, you know, I'm not attached to this, but guilt by association, and seeing how she can rebrand herself in the United States and maybe go the Meghan Markle route, the lifestyle route. She's tried it before with Oprah.
Well, yes, and celebrity is all that matters. That's your currency. She's a world-famous figure, Sarah Ferguson. She's infamous. And the Americans, as you say, love a redemptive story. Robert Downey Jr., Charlie Sheen, many others who have reached rock bottom and then turned their lives around. And Americans love that storybook. So the issue is that Sarah Ferguson now has got to find her own accommodation, hasn't she? So do you think she'll have to go to America just to make ends meet?
I've heard a couple of different scenarios. The first one is that she will break down and spend some time at Sandringham until she gets her life together, even though going from a 30-bedroom mall, like shopping mall of a home, where you have your own wing and he has your own wing, to a 5 or 6 bedroom house is probably humbling, probably something that would take some adjusting. So I don't know how long that they would be able to stand each other in those accommodations. I've heard that the girls will have to take care of her in some capacity, but I do think that she realistically sees America as an opportunity for her to escape this and change the public perception.
She's not going to be as toxic a brand in the States as she is here.
I agree, yes.
Yeah. And what about, I mean, does she have money? Because what's curious is that she purchased a rather salubrious property in, I think, Mayfair, a Muse house, around 4 or 5 years ago. I think it's an investment for her daughters, but she's just sold it at a loss. Now, I'm no expert on estate agency and being a realtor, but you don't buy a property and then sell it quickly at a loss unless you've got money problems.
Well, when has Fergie not had money problems? That's really the story of her life, and that's what's gotten her into so much trouble in the past. Being lured by people like Jeffrey Epstein and the fake sheikh, I think it was.
Yeah.
That she
was offering cash for access to the royal family. But because she thinks she's a queen, she's always lived beyond her means.
Right.
It seems like, and she's a very self-destructive personality. But I mean, is she broke? Is she flat broke?
I think she likely is flat. I think she likely is flat broke. I mean, she does have over 30 books she's written. I mean, a lot of them are children's books. Her resume is incredible. Also very similar to Meghan Markle. Meghan is producing movies for Netflix now, allegedly. Meet Me at the Lake. Fergie produced that wonderful Emily Blunt Queen Victoria movie. They've both done reality shows. They've both worked with Oprah Winfrey. They've both been podcast hosts. So Fergie is willing to really do anything and everything. I don't think it's because she's necessarily ambitious. I think it's more to test the waters and see what she can get financially out of the deal. You know, in America, we still pay top dollar for interviews. Would she be willing to write? Would she be willing to sever all ties with the royals and risk her daughter's relationships with them by writing a tell-all where she reveals some of Princess Diana's deepest, darkest secrets? Because Fergie can do that. They were best friends. They plotted to leave their husbands together to try to humiliate and bring down the monarchy in the 90s. I'm sure she knows a lot of things that have never come out yet. They used to secretly meet with astrologers, and you know, they would dress up as police officers and sneak into nightclubs. They had a lot of fun. They got into a lot of trouble, and I'm sure we haven't heard every story that exists around that relationship, but she would be jeopardizing her relationship with the royals and potentially making the royals hesitant about their relationships with Beatrice and Eugenie, the same way they were. Well, Harry's relationship with them jeopardized the cousin's relationship with Prince William.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting path to watch to see what she does next, but we've seen that she's willing to do almost anything.
Most definitely. Well, here's a question for you. King Charles, should he consider laying the groundwork for his own abdication in order to save the monarchy? We've got a full switchboard on this. We'll get to your calls and more from Kinsey Schofield next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Folks, really big story, of course, the only story in town, and it's the fact that Andrew is no longer a prince, but has the problem gone away. Elliot is in Bushy. Hello, Elliot. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Oh, hi. Good show. Look, there's something that's really bothering me. It's not really being discussed, and it should be. It's very simple, but very sensitive. About Andrew and the royal family, I'm a great supporter of the monarchy, and I think Charles is very good. He spoke brilliantly after his mother died. It was on YouTube. He spoke so sensitively. But as far as Andrew's unpleasant behaviour and his supposed unpleasant contacts, this has been going on for years, Mark, for years. Everybody knew, the family knew, the royal family, the reverence and respect we gave the Queen No one criticised her for calling her, or the press used this awful term, I loathed it, her favourite son. I thought it was a ghastly and an awful term. They knew. Did they do anything? Charles is the king. He knew what was going on with his brother. Nobody talks about this, and I think this is a terrible disappointment in the monarchy and the whole environment of our country and what it really means. This is the key constitutional structure of our country. It is the absolute legacy of whatever will be left of this once great country. And there's a terrible stain, and the stain is made worse because nobody talks about it. Are you honestly saying to me that none of them, and the other brothers, none of them, Philip, he was a tough old so-and-so, he didn't know what was going on? Maybe they did. Maybe they tried to rein him in. But to me, nothing was done. It's all been too late. And Charles, I think he's great. He's been too slow. And this will not finish. It will leave an unpleasant, I hate to use the term, Mark, a very unpleasant smell on the monarchy, on our reputation throughout the Western democratic world and the global economic and social political environment. I think it's wrong. And the fact that no one discusses it, the silence is deafening. One further point, if I may, very quickly, please. This 12 million that was paid, okay, what? Out of the Queen's own money? Out of what is the civil list, or used to be called the civil list, taxpayers? It's a disgrace that no one's asked exactly where it's come from. This thing, this don't talk, don't speak about it, actually makes the whole thing much worse. And as for the man himself, Andrew, yes, he has not been found guilty. But you know what? His whole demeanour, his whole attitude, his whole self-entitlement, his whole perception, and perception is reality. He has no understanding. He has no sensitivity. And he did say in that interview one thing that struck me. Emily Maitlis asked him categorically, what will you do now? And he said, I'll work for charity, I'll do this, I'll do that. Mark, he's done nothing, which is exactly the contribution he's made to this country. Nothing. And I now read, and it's all over YouTube, and I won't go any further, taking up your time enough. I now read that his supposed great heroic work and what he did as a helicopter and a sort of decoy in Falklands actually wasn't the case. Now, I don't know whether it was or whether it wasn't, but the fact that these things are coming out now and not being talked about, to me, is very, very sad. And I again say, finally, I'm a great supporter of the family, but I'm sorry they've made some big mistakes. We don't, particularly the Queen, because we have the utmost respect for her, which I understand. But she's human. She makes mistakes. She may have made mistakes. You know what I'm trying to say, Mark?
Elliot, listen, I'll tell you something. We should talk about it. Thank you for a brilliant contribution to the show. There's Elliot, right? The mother of all cover-ups, Kinsey Schofield.
Well, I mean, to defend King Charles, I do think that this was an inherited scandal, an inherited problem. And, I want to be sympathetic to the timeline. King Charles becomes the king only because their mother died. Their shared mother died. They're still mourning the death of Prince Philip. It happened so closely. We lose Prince Philip. We lose Queen Elizabeth. Fergie is diagnosed with breast cancer. After Fergie announces that she's gone into remission, then we have the King and Catherine. They announce that they've got cancer. Throughout all of this, Harry and Meghan are throwing grenades, accusing the family of racism. Let's not pretend that King Charles has not been immensely stressed over the last few years and has been dealing with a lot of health and personal problems.
But what about Elliot's concern that, Anne must have known, Charles must have known,
and the hardest working royal that is, up day and night, leaving one charity event to hop on a helicopter to get to the next, who's kicked in the head by a horse found in the middle of a field after they were searching for her, and as soon as she gets out of the hospital is back to work as a working royal. I mean, I think that I'm not trying to say that they're self-consumed, but they've got their own lives to lead and their own responsibilities. They're not worried about who Prince Andrew's taking on his shooting weekend back in 2020. We know that, or we believe that, or I'm sorry, 2000. We believe that he took Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein in 2000 to a shooting weekend in Sandringham. We're not worried about who he's taking to his shooting weekend. We're looking at our diaries and what the expectations are from us to represent the monarchy at the
what
best
about
of
this
our
idea,
ability.
though, that you would know a certain amount, you would know that your brother is a bad person, that he's up to bad things, and they stayed silent, is Elliot's concern?
I have relatives and I have no idea what they're up to.
Yeah.
Because I'm busy. I'm working. I'm up at morning, noon, and night, and I'm working, and I'm just doing what my responsibilities are.
And may thank the Lord that you do, because you are now one of the world's leading royal experts and royal broadcasters. Your show on YouTube is colossal. Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. And you're off to America, but you're going to come back and see us very soon.
I will.
We love your work, the one and only Kinsey Schofield, who is, let me tell you, broadcasting royalty. Speaking of which, we're going to take a nostalgic look at a golden year of the past in the company of Virgin Radio's Steve Denyer next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Lovely message from Sue about the show. Thank you, Sue. I have no sympathy for Andrew, she writes, but people have to remember the British public and journalism put him on this pedestal in the 1970s and 80s. The press couldn't get enough of Randy Andy and the girls that he was with. Thank you for that, Sue. Let's get now to a very exciting part of the show, which is Retro Rewinding, which we choose a year in the past and indulge in a bit of much-needed nostalgia when the world was an innocent and more happy place, in the company of an innocent and very happy man. Virgin Radio, Steve Denyer. Hello, Steve.
Hello, very good morning to you. How are you doing?
I'm very well. The sun is up in the capital, and you've come in with some good news, which is a little kind of nostalgic look at the past. What year are we going to go to?
The year is 1986. It's a gorgeous day in July, the day after my 9th birthday, in fact, when Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson get married. They were just 26 in 1986. They reckon, so this was the biggest wedding after Charles and Diana. 500 million people worldwide saw this wedding. All I remember about it is I had to go to school that day. They didn't give us a day off.
A travesty. Well, it was actually a big national occasion, and at that time, Sarah and Andrew were popular royals.
Very, very popular. It was almost like the fairy tale dream. If you look at pictures of the wedding dress, for example, it was really kind of like princess-like, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
that cream dress, it was really like a beautiful thing, wasn't it?
With A's apparently sewn in.
Right.
After Andrew and, you know, his awards.
She's probably had that dress burned now.
I wonder where it is.
I think it's at the Sandringham Oxfam.
Right. Okay, I'll go down there later and try and retrieve it.
Definitely.
But it very much was. The nation loved them. We remember the kiss on the balcony during that wedding day. So many people.
Old Andrew didn't need any encouraging on that one, did he?
He was straight in. So it's interesting, isn't it? He got engaged on his 26th birthday. It's interesting to note they were just 26 years old when they got married in 1986.
Well, yeah, and you know, at that time he was the handsome war hero.
Yes,
having served in the Navy in the Falklands, and then she was sort of bright, fun-loving, carefree, attractive woman who didn't come with a sort of normal royal stiffness and protocol. She was
you're right. She was the fun one, but they could be fun because they weren't. You know, they were the spares, if you like. So
they didn't have that responsibility.
Exactly that.
Yeah, and also I think my observation about Sarah and Andrew back in the day is that so many of these marriages are sort of arranged, and we know that Charles was in love with Camilla when he married Diana.
Yeah.
Diana was the sort of posh aristocrat that was an appropriate partner for him, potentially a virgin when they married. So she ticked the boxes, but of course look what happened.
Yeah.
But Andrew and Sarah appear to have married for love.
Appeared to.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, apparently Diana did lots of the heavy duty work in the background to get them together.
Oh, is that right? She was the matchmaker.
Before this, Diana apparently really got on with Andrew, so it could have been a whole different situation, but it was Sarah Ferguson and it was Prince Andrew, as he was called then, getting married. Of course, years later, if you've seen The Crown, you know the controversy over the Sarah Ferguson, the toe pictures, and everything kind of all unravelled within the decade, really, didn't it?
Definitely. I mean, I'd love to do that with Mrs. Dolan. Unfortunately, she's a touch of athlete's foot.
Right.
Yeah, it's the humid temperatures.
You can get fungal foot powder.
Yeah, so I've got the Amazon on speed dial for that. Can I ask you then, what else happened in '86?
Interesting developments. Margaret Thatcher was our Prime Minister. She was really beginning to be known as the Iron Lady. If you watch the Spitting Image episodes in '86, she started to look more severe. So it was the beginning of that, you know, the power dressing, the suit and stuff. But she officially opened the first phase of the Nissan car factory, which was the biggest kind of Japanese car factory within Europe here in the UK. So she kind of went from strikes to to motor cars, and it started to be a new kind of found, like, we're doing things well in this country, and all eyes were on the plant in Sunderland. The first car was the Nissan Bluebird, that came out of the factory in the UK.
And it was a great investment. It was a great moment for the country, because by 87, Britain was a sort of global economic, diplomatic and military powerhouse, wasn't it? You got Thatcher and Reagan pretty much together ended the Cold War.
Yes.
And we had an economic boom. Del Boy had gone from being, you know, this rather sort of struggling market trader to a yuppie. Do you remember that?
With the mobile phone.
And the briefcase?
Yes.
You know, and that was like a real kind of portrait of how the country had changed. And then the election in 97. So that was an interesting period in our history. And did you know the legacy of Nissan, and we've got so many viewers and listeners in the North East.
Yes.
It remains the most productive car plant in Europe.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Isn't that
they
incredible?
churn out so many Micras and all the rest of it. Nissan Leafs to this day. Qashqai.
Yes.
Do you like a Nissan, by the way?
My first car was a Nissan Sunny.
There you go.
Which I drove out as my mum's. I can't pretend to be that cool, but I did drive it for years and years and years until I wrote it off. And I'm sorry about that.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Look at you, rock and roll.
I don't drive anymore.
Is that
I
right?
can't be trusted.
Well, do you care to share the circumstances?
Attention issues, I think, was the...
Sleep at the wheel. I've never had a Nissan, but I drive a Toyota, so I'm a fan of the Japanese cars.
Nice.
They're very reliable.
Very sturdy.
They are.
Very
just
sturdy.
a bit. Right, well, what's next?
Let me take you to the highest audience of all time of any Christmas show. I mean, this is the highest audience of any EastEnders show. I have a little clip, actually. Can I show you a little bit?
Show me your
I
clip.
think we all remember this moment if we're ready to go with Den and Angie.
Well, now the joke's on you. This, my sweet, is a letter from my solicitor telling you that your husband has filed a petition for divorce. It also tells you to get yourself a solicitor pretty damn quick. Happy Christmas, Anne.
We had to wait for the drum beat.
Isn't that great?
They don't make drama like that anymore, do they?
They don't, and apparently it was a first, because up until this Christmas episode, it'd always been quite lovely and Christmassy with soaps and stuff, but this was the first kind of gritty, you know, high octane kind of storyline, and it changed everything. From then on, you had Arthur Fowler's breakdown years later. But going back to this episode, 31.5 million people watched that, and we watched it in our front rooms with our families. It was appointment to view. Of course, you know, you could say that the Celebrity Trace is a bit like that now, but that's only got, like, you know, 12 million. But literally half the country watched that episode just before Christmas lunch on Christmas Day in 1986, and it became legendary.
Leslie Grantham and Anita Dobson. It was the great sort of dramatic relationship, you know, the sort of tumultuous marriage. Above, of course, Angie and Den, almost with parallels of Sue Ellen and JR in Dallas.
Yeah, of course. You know, those really huge storylines where you remember where you were when you first saw them, and they're real kind of water cooler moments where everybody was talking about the same thing, you know, the following day or whatever. Can I take you to one of the most famous headlines? This is at the Sun newspaper. Freddie Starr ate my hamster. Do you remember
Sorry, is that a bit of gossip?
That was a front page.
It was an iconic front page, I believe, under the editorship of Kelvin Mackenzie.
Kelvin, yeah.
And it's an incredible story. Did it happen?
No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It was all about, apparently, he wanted a sandwich and there was no filling for the sandwich. So I think he made a joke because the person he was staying with had a hamster. But it made it into the paper, and it did so well for his career. He was just about to go out on tour. The tour was completely sold out. They had to add extra dates because everyone wanted to know, did it happen?
That is
did it happen or was it true? And everyone went and bought the copy of The Sun because of this headline in 1986. It was also the year that Top Gun was released. It was interesting because Top Gun, the movie, was massive, but also the soundtrack was huge. Berlin, Take My Breath Away. That song got an Oscar for greatest movie soundtrack.
Well, this is very relevant to your work on Virgin Radio because I miss the era of the movie soundtrack.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like it's quite so prescient anymore. When I was growing up, the Footloose album came out, and then you had Animal House was a big one. The Blues Brothers. And Top Gun.
Top Gun and Dirty Dancing, I think, were
Dirty Dancing was huge.
They were huge, and of course the Rocky soundtracks as well. So we love the movies, but we also love buying the movie soundtracks to accompany. It was a big business.
Well, I'll tell you who likes Dirty Dancing, and the dirtiest of all is Peter Cardwell.
I heard that. I read that.
It's a foxtrot and the sambo. Is that right?
As always in these handovers, I feel I've had the time of my life, and I've never felt this way before.
Not just thrown together. This guy's coming in hot today. Yes, favourite movie soundtrack?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
While you're thinking,
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh,
I mean, I knew all the songs. I could do the dances as well.
I think mine's Buster. You know the movie with Phil Collins?
Absolutely brilliant.
I think great because it had him. It had Going Loco and Acapulco, the Four
Oh,
Tops.
that's a great song.
Really good songs.
I didn't expect you to say that. That was slightly against the odds.
Look at you.
There's a movie,
he's on fire.
There's a movie called The Big Chill, which is a kind of bit of a romantic comedy movie.
Great film.
Great soundtrack on that, and then I heard it through the grapevine. Other great tunes. Very excited. Anything else before you go?
Hand of God, Diego Maradona. That happened in this year. I must just tell you, we've launched our brand new radio station.